During his entire childhood, the boy had a vague dream, happy to have seen a goal while watching a game. He saw people celebrating as Park Ji-seok equalized the score to 1-1 and ran across the field while the boy dreamed of being the best soccer player in the world. He rejoiced watching all of that. During dinner at home, his father asked Uho-yeong what his dream was. Yeong said he wanted to become an amazing soccer player like Ji-seok, and the boy's father told him that to be a soccer player, he needed talent. However, he believed his son truly had talent. For years, he thought his father was right. He believed he was talented and a brilliant soccer player. In 2002, he joined a highly promising soccer school, but he stumbled in the middle of the field, hurting himself, and realized he was no match for the children who had been professionally trained. He fell to the ground in an awkward manner. He touched his leg and noticed that he had fallen again. The coach approached Uho-yeong, who listened to his trainer, but the coach said that from now on he would train separately, surprising Yeong as this was the group below average. He watched the other children training and reflected that he felt like he was facing a massive, absurd wall he could never climb which blocked his path. So he left the soccer academy and went on with his life. When he got home, Uho-yeong began to cry, but his father placed a hand on his head, calling his name, and saying that everyone blossoms at their own pace, and just because a plant grows quickly doesn't mean a flower will do the same. Touching his son's head, Yeong reflected on what might have happened if he hadn't given up. He wondered if he truly had talent, as he had worked hard, and wanted to know if he would have blossomed and borne fruit. In 2026, in a commercial district, an older Yeong was drinking beer at a bar, cursing his past. His friend asked why he was saying such things all of a sudden, and if he was drunk. Yeong denied it and congratulated him for being accepted, while his friend reminded him he'd already congratulated him before. The young man asked if they weren't going to celebrate on a day like this, because when good things happen, they should celebrate. His friend Lee Yong-soo, sitting across from him, kept talking with him, while Yeong drank his beer. Yong-soo had joined a professional soccer club. In comparison, Yeong had a part-time job at a store. Yeong swallowed hard and downed the entire glass of beer in one go, then slammed it on the table, saying he also wanted to be a professional player and not an idiot. He shouldn't have given up on everything so early in life. Yeong said that if he had continued playing soccer, he'd be enjoying himself now, but Yong-soo told him to stop talking nonsense because he'd already have a Ballon d'Or if that were the case. But there was no way to undo his regret as it was far too late. This surprised Yeong because he had been regretting it all along. He shouldn't have treated soccer like a simple hobby, nor should he have quit playing when he faced a challenge, because even after that he had many opportunities, but he kept repeating his regrets, thinking it was too late. Yeong only wanted to go back to his childhood, because he wanted to start everything over from scratch. Yeong called himself an idiot while regretting. Yong-soo's phone rang as his friend lamented. He asked if Yeong wanted to play soccer now, because their friend Sang-ho needed 2 people for a 4-on-4 futsal game. Yeong looked out the window seeing the rain, and agreed to play, accepting the invitation. So they set off the futsal game. When they arrived at the venue, Yong-soo greeted everyone, saying it had been a long time, while the people there said he had finally arrived. Yeong looked among the people and noticed someone. Jung-ho also noticed him, but quickly showed disapproval toward Yeong. Yeong reflected that he hadn't even said hello to them. Yoon Jung-ho was a player talented enough to win the Chobum Kun Award in Korean soccer. People even said he could be the successor to Park Ju-hyun, but he had to quit professionally due to an injury. Yeong and Jung-ho always had a bad relationship, and Jung-ho still held a grudge. So both turned their heads away when they saw each other, while the others chatted among themselves. One of the people there asked why they were waiting outside in the rain. Another person said the indoor field was crowded, so they should have a quick game. The rules were 4 versus 4, and the first team to score 5 goals would win. The game began as the ball left the ground. Yeong advanced across the field as someone informed him he would be the striker. He had attended a renowned soccer academy with his father, so his physicality and techniques were above average. Yeong was free as he advanced toward the goal, reflecting that he was skilled enough to shoot the ball accurately from anywhere. But he was intercepted by Jung-ho's defense, who stole the ball from him. Yeong reflected that even so, he still couldn't compare to a seasoned player. Jung-ho advanced across the field, using his peripheral vision, while Yeong stood still, watching him without reacting. Then he yelled at him with all his might, but he had already anticipated this type of scenario, a match against a high-caliber soccer player. So he charged at Jung-ho, stealing the ball from his feet, saying he would break through him. A loud snap echoed across the field. Jung-ho had the ball in front of Yeong, and gave him a malicious smile, saying Yeong's passing level was far too low as he kicked the ball with all his strength. It hit Yeong's leg, and went out of bounds, causing a throw-in. Yeong extended his hand forward, grabbing Jung-ho by the shirt and telling him not to get cocky. But his teammates tried to stop the fight, and Yong-soo told him to calm down. Jung-ho said he would let it slide, but Yeong should get the ball since it went out after hitting his leg. Yeong broke free from his teammate's grasp, calling Jung-ho a sore loser. He walked over to the ball, which was on the sideline outside the field, but it was thundering heavily that day. When Yeong went to retrieve the ball, it was surrounded by static electricity. A lightning bolt struck him in the back. The discharge was immense against the young man. making him writhe in pain, screaming as he was struck. Yang couldn't believe he had been hit by lightning. He thought it was unfair since he hadn't accomplished anything yet and couldn't believe he was struck by such an absurd probability. Completely electrocuted, he questioned whether this was real as he would die senselessly. Then he screamed into the void, demanding his life back, repeating the phrase over and over without tiring his voice. But he noticed something strange and asked it to wait. He wondered where he was with his body intact and dressed. A laugh echoed behind him. An immense portal to the abyss appeared. A mass being emerged from the portal, materializing after everything, unfolding his wings like a demon while holding a staff. Yang was awestruck by what he saw, asking if it was a demon or something similar. The demon nodded and said he was correct. Yang remarked that it was obvious since it looked like a demon. The demon explained that it was the demon of greed and humans called it the Brain Eater. It asked if Yang wanted to make a deal, completely stunning the young man. The demon and Yang stood face to face. Yang said they should first clarify things, asking what kind of deal they were talking about. The demon agreed and explained that Yang could trade two things with him. The first was time, represented by green light in his hand, and the second was an ability. Yang nodded silently as he listened. The demon said it would explain time first, stating that Yang could go back to any age between 10 and 23. This amazed Yang, but the demon added that there was a price to pay as nothing came free in this world. Yang asked what the price was. The demon pointed at him while approaching and said that for every year he went back, his life expectancy would decrease by 1 year. This explanation terrified Yang. The demon continued, saying that going back 23 years would cost 23 years of his life, but no one knew when their life would end. Yang laughed at the demon, saying it was a fantastic trade-off. As long as he wouldn't lose his manly duties or go bald, it didn't matter because people usually lived to 100 and that was good enough. Then he asked about the ability. The demon said it would grant him his power. Yang asked what kind of power that was. The demon of greed replied that it was the power to have everything he desired. The boy questioned what the demon meant by that. The demon explained that it was exactly as stated, the power to turn other people's talents into his own. Yang reflected that it was hard to understand the nature of the ability with just words, and he needed to grasp it for himself. However, with this ability, he could obtain anything he desired. Yang saw the demon pointing at his face and asked if this wasn't more of a charity than a deal. The demon prepared its power, asking how many years Yang wanted to go back. Yang was surprised and laughed, saying it was absurd, but if it was real, he wanted to go back. He woke up with a childlike appearance. A young Yang was surprised, standing in his living room. He looked around at his surroundings. While the TV mentioned Park Ji-sung's transfer to Eintracht Frankfurt, Yang realized that he had truly gone back. He sighed and tried speaking 3 times, then moved his hands to check if everything was in order. He reflected that it was exactly 17 years ago, August 8, 2002. He was 10 years old and in the 3rd grade of elementary school. Yang clenched his fists and declared that now, he had returned to an age where he could achieve anything. Yang looked to the side and saw his mother asking his father for help, to which he agreed. They mentioned that it was already nighttime. Yang felt happy and said that his mother and father looked so young. With dinner set on the table, his father asked what Yang's dream was, as he occasionally did during dinner. Yang said he wanted to be a soccer player. His father remarked that his son seemed quite polished and asked if he wanted to be like Park Ji-sung. But Yang denied it, saying he would be far more incredible than Park Ji-sung, because he would be the best soccer player in the world. This surprised both his father and mother. While Yang smiled and said that was what he wanted, his parents laughed and smiled warmly at their son. They ruffled his hair in a moment of affection. Yang thought about the future where he would play and face a player, confident that his dream would come true. The boy clutched his body, saying he was back to being 10 years old. He was now at an age where he could do anything. He could do whatever he wanted until bedtime after school, as he was still in the 3rd grade. He looked at his father and asked where the hypernova was. His father handed him a ball, the official ball of the 2002 Korea and Japan World Cup, called the hypernova. Yang held the ball, wondering why his heart raced just by looking at it. After school, Yang kicked the ball forward, running after it. He said he felt incredibly happy doing this. When he was young, he wanted to grow up quickly, but as an adult, he realized that this was the happiest moment. Yang stopped on the field, wondering if he should check if the ability was real. He closed his eyes and looked within himself, seeing something materializing in front of him. It took a rectangular shape while emanating energy. It said that Uho-yeong didn't possess any talent. Realizing he had no talent, Yang was surprised and looked up. He said he felt disappointed because he thought he had some ability when he was younger, but he didn't have any talent after all. He wasn't even close to being a genius or even a ball boy. On the field outside the school, Yang kept doing some kick-ups with his hypernova, kicking it afterward, then catching it in his hand, reflecting that it would take some time to adapt to a younger body, but it would be amazing to compare later. But Yang heard a shout from afar. It was Jong-ho asking what Yang was doing, saying he couldn't play soccer. Yang looked back, analyzing that this was the 10-year-old Jong-ho, and asked if he was starting a fight, while Jong-ho asked if it was wrong to call trash worthless. Then he stuck out his tongue at Yang. Yang clenched his fist in reaction to the boy, but quickly relaxed it. Jong-ho was surprised and wondered what had happened. Yang reflected that instead of hitting Jong-ho's face, he would observe him, creating an awareness of the boy, while reflecting that if his ability didn't reveal his personal talent, it might reveal others. Yang simply watched as Avaris formed above Jong-ho. Standing in front of his face, unnoticed by the boy, Avaris stated that Jong-ho was a soccer prodigy, had a strong mid-range shot, and if Yang played soccer with him for an hour, he could copy his talent. Yang reflected that Mammon's ability not only revealed his own talents but also the talents of others. However, he realized that Yoon Jong-ho wasn't a soccer genius, but it was better than nothing. Still, it wasn't surprising. He wondered if fulfilling the condition would allow him to steal Jong-ho's talent. After all, this was the ability Mammon had given him called Avaris. Yang didn't know what would happen but decided to try. He called Jong-ho and asked if he wanted to play soccer with him. The ball bounced off the ground as the two boys faced each other on the field, running after it. Yang tried to mark Jong-ho, but Jong-ho shot the goal, scoring a point against Yang. Jong-ho said it was boring and that he didn't want to play soccer with Yang. Yang reflected that it was harsh criticism coming from a soccer prodigy, but it didn't matter. He could choose to copy a talent as the condition of playing soccer for over an hour had been met. Yang realized he didn't need to hesitate and would choose the best option. He chose to be a soccer prodigy. Then Avaris began to change, displaying a screen of Uho-yeong and his possessed talents, now showing that he had acquired the talent of a soccer prodigy. As Yang grew excited about this, Avaris highlighted his newly gained talent, solidifying the screen. Yang reflected that now he and Jong-ho were on the same level, so their future growth depended solely on himself, and he was confident in that. He looked at the Avaris hovering over Jong-ho, noticing that copying a talent didn't mean the other person would lose theirs, and the condition dropped to 50 minutes. He wondered if this was because the remaining talent was rank C. Yang said they should play a bit more. Jong-ho refused, saying Yang was terrible at soccer and that he had to go to practice. Yang said that if they played more soccer, he would buy Jong-ho some tteokbokki. Jong-ho started to walk away though, but Yang added that he'd buy chocolate as well, which made the boys stay. Yang thanked him since after all, he was still just a child. Then he collapsed to the ground, exhausted after playing. Avaris appeared above him and told him he could copy a talent, with the only option being the strong mid-range shot. Yang chose it at that moment, and Avaris confirmed that he had gained the talent. The boy got up, saying he was exhausted and that they should stop for now, while Jong-ho asked if he was already tired. He commented that Yang's skills had improved a little. Yang gave a sly smile and said it was thanks to Jong-ho. Jong-ho questioned him about this, but Yang denied it, saying they should hurry since he was going to buy the snacks. On the way, Jong-ho asked if Yang had any money, and Yang nodded, reflecting that he had gained a talent thanks to him, so he paid for 301 tteokbokki. Jong-ho asked if Yang's family was poor and if his mother would scold him. Yang reflected that Jong-ho still had a horrible personality. He extended his hand, thinking that if Jong-ho hadn't said that, he would have bought him the tteokbokki. Yang gave him a 101 coin and said he had no further business with him, running off while Jong-ho called him an idiot. Yang walked through the city, reflecting that it wasn't enough. To make this talent flourish, he needed hard work and luck. It was like watching a video of a child playing soccer on YouTube, where they were discovered by Manchester United. In that era, they only had phones and no YouTube, but there was a way. It was to appear on a TV program. He reflected on the perfect program to appear on. Originally, it was a youth development program that aired during the World Cup. Through this program, more than 10 players became professionals, one of them being Lee Kang-shiel, who was signed by Valencia. It was a golden opportunity to become a star instantly. So Yang decided he would do it, using the youth development that ignited young soccer in Korea. He called out to his father, who was sitting and reading, and said he wanted to be on the Shoot Dory program. His father asked about it, and his mother questioned what it was. It was Fly Shoot Dory, the youth soccer development program. From the first time it aired, it wasn't famous, so it was natural that his parents didn't know about it. Yang pointed to a computer to show them. He displayed a news article about the premiere of Fly Shoot Dory. His mother asked how he knew about this, while his father looked at the screen, wondering what kind of show it was. Stating that it was a program with auditions starting on September 3, aimed at developing children aged 8 to 10. The coach participating in it was the active singer Kim Jong-kook. Yang looked at his father and mother, touching his father's hand on the mouse, and his mother's hand, which was lowered, while saying he wanted to participate. His parents were astonished by the boy, but then they laughed. His mother remarked that he seemed energetic, and his father said he would fully support him since it was what his son wanted. Time passed, and the day of the audition arrived. Saturday, September 3. At the main soccer field of the Korean Association, the judges were waiting for children. One of them said they would select only 8 or 10 children among them, so they should focus on anyone who stood out. However, another judge questioned if they weren't considering the skills of the other children after all. This was Kim Jong-kook, a singer and coach for Shoot Dory. Choi Hyun-jae agreed, saying it would be good to include those who captured attention, not necessarily the best, and asked if Jong-kook would test some of them. Jong-kook simply nodded in agreement. Hyun-jae said they would use it as promotional footage to make it more engaging, but that didn't mean they should focus too much on him. He wondered if Jong-kook understood what it meant to spark interest, and Jong-kook said he would try his best. Jae stood up and asked if they should go take a look, wanting to see if there was anyone worth noticing while Yang stood among the children. One of the boys lowered his head and thanked them. Jae noted that there was a shy boy, 2 playful ones, a polite one, a girl, 2 cute kids, and a handsome boy, concluding that it was enough. Then he asked Jungkook about the boy currently performing, and Jungkook said the boy kicked well, but didn't stand out among the others. Jae agreed, saying they would watch him next time. It was Young's turn. He greeted them and said he hoped to work with them. Looking at the judges without fear, Jae noticed his confident gaze and confirmed the boy's name. Then he observed Yang, noting that he didn't have an outstanding appearance, wasn't particularly short, and was in 3rd grade, an age without much cuteness or records. Yang simply stood still as the judge thought. Jae reflected that there was nothing about him that made him a hot topic, so he asked if Yang liked soccer. Yang said he really liked soccer. The producer then asked if he could show his talent. He was good at anything, and Yang agreed. He placed the ball on the ground, but Jae interrupted him. The boy stood in front of the still ball. Jae said he could show any special skill, not limited to soccer, but Yang replied that soccer was his special skill. This made the producer question him. Yang kicked the ball upward, doing some kick-ups with his cleats. Jae and Jungkook were impressed. Then he used his knee to kick the ball higher, performing several tricks with his feet, heel, and side. All the judges were amazed by the boy's ball control. Then Yang hit the ball with his head. One of the spectators remarked that he must have practiced a lot. The ball stopped on Yang's head. Yang had prepared not just an ordinary personal skill, but something he had built over the past month, training on the field with his knee. Panting from the effort, he wondered if this was the combination of his 24 years and the talent of a prodigy. He finished his performance by stopping the ball on the ground. Jungkook asked Choi if Yang was a soccer prodigy, and Choi said it seemed so, but that they should observe more. Then Jungkook stood up and said they would conduct a simple test, asking Yang if he was confident, and Yang only asked about the test. Jungkook said Yang would play a game against him, where he would defend, and Yang had to score a goal. Crouching down, he asked if Yang could do it, and the boy simply nodded. The test format was closer to freestyle, where Yang had to score a goal in a small net at the end of the corridor, and if he failed to score, he would be disqualified. This wasn't a skill evaluation, but was being done for promotional footage, and Yang moved forward, as Jungkook stepped in front of him, saying he would take it easy on him. But Yang easily bypassed him. Jungkook looked back, wondering what had just happened. Yang simply kicked the ball into the goal effortlessly. Jungkook said he was incredible. Then Yang turned around and Jungkook remarked that he wasn't just good at juggling. Jungkook kicked the ball back to Yang and asked if they should try again, saying this time he would face him properly. Not just because Yang was an elementary school student, but because he was genuinely curious about him. He positioned himself in front of Yang, wondering if the boy was a genius or not. Yang simply observed him without saying a word, then advanced, dribbling the ball, quickly pulling back with the ball, and prepared to shoot from where he stood, launching the ball as if it were a hurricane. It hit the goal, surprising Jungkook. All the producers and writers applauded, astonished. Even the audience was completely surprised. Jungkook reflected that while he hadn't engaged Yang physically, the boy had made a smart play and scored from a distance. Yang simply stared forward without reacting. Jungkook commented that it was a powerful mid-range shot and that he didn't need to see anything else, because Uho-yeong was genuinely good at soccer. On the way home, Yang celebrated his victory, saying that judging by the production team's reaction, he had passed and all his hard work had paid off. It was a good start, and if he performed well on the program, he'd become famous in no time. He imagined famous teams fighting to recruit him, just like they did with Lee Kang-cheol, who was the program's best outcome and raised fans' expectations worldwide, becoming an overnight star. Thanks to that, he joined Spain's prestigious soccer team, Valencia CF, starting his journey to the elite. Yang reflected that he would like to join Barcelona or perhaps Real Madrid, telling himself to wait just a little longer. But someone called out to Yang. Yang turned and called Kim Jong-kook big brother. The man approached him, smiling and asking if the boy recognized him. Yang said he had seen him on a music show, but Jong-kook knelt down, saying the boy was very good at soccer and extending a fist for a bump. Yang smiled and bumped his fist against Jong-kook's. Jong-kook smiled and laughed with the boy. Yang asked if he would appear on the program. Jong-kook said yes because his older brother was the director. But Young's parents quickly arrived, calling for him. Young's father introduced himself and Jong-kook greeted them, laughing along with the boy's parents. Young's parents said he looked familiar but couldn't remember where from. Young explained that he was Kim Jong-kook, also known as Leroy the White Cat. Young's father apologized for not recognizing him and Jong-kook remained humble, saying that Yang was truly good at soccer. Young's father thanked him, saying it was amazing to watch his son since he was so talented. Jong-kook agreed, saying Yang could even play abroad. Yang reflected that it was their first meeting, yet they got along extremely well. Jong-kook said goodbye, wishing for good results from Yang, and Young's father thanked him, telling him to take care. The singer walked away, wishing Yang good luck. Yang nodded, wishing Jong-kook good luck as well. But a beam of avarice began to appear. indicating that he could copy a talent from Jungkook if he trained with him for more than 60 minutes. He had the talent of sculpted muscles at rank C and the vocal cords of a singer, also at rank C. Yang stared at this, surprised, commenting that there wasn't any soccer-related talent. Then he called out to Jungkook before he left. The singer turned to look at the boy. Yang asked if he could recommend a good protein supplement. Jungkook was surprised by the request, but then smiled at the boy, saying he was too young to take supplements, but it wouldn't hurt to learn about them, and asked if Yang wanted him to explain. Yang nodded, reflecting that he understood since he'd heard that was every health enthusiast's favorite line, and it seemed to be true. Then he asked Jungkook to teach him some exercises as well. Jungkook smiled at the boy after hearing the request. Yang focused on finding the conditions of avarice, asking him for good protein and tips on exercising. Jungkook showed him a few bottles and handed him one. He stretched for Yang, teaching him how to run properly, and even played soccer with the boy. Jungkook drank water while Yang thought to himself that the time had come. Avarice appeared, telling him to choose a talent to copy. Without hesitation, Yang chose the sculpted muscles talent, not giving it much thought. He selected it and wondered why a soccer player would need a singing voice. Avarice began to activate for Uho-yeong, informing him that he had acquired the talent of sculpted muscles. Yang reflected, feeling as though his muscles were stronger. It wasn't what a soccer player necessarily needed, but it was extremely beneficial. Yang's father arrived and thanked Jungkook, asking how he could repay him for helping his son. Jungkook said he enjoyed it too and wasn't following any specific plan but just exercising. He reflected that it was a special time since he enjoyed being around kids. However, it was the first time a boy had shown interest in health and fitness. 2 weeks passed since their training. Yang's father answered the phone and confirmed everything. Yang was surprised by his father's presence. His father lifted him up and told him he had made it, swinging him around while congratulating him. Yang complained that he was getting dizzy, but his father just said he was incredibly proud of him. The boy asked if the call was from MBS and if he had been selected for Shoot Dory, and his father confirmed it. Yang smiled from ear to ear upon hearing the news, declaring that on September 16, 2002, the name Uho-yeong was proudly on the participant list of Shoot Dory. Yang jumped off the ground, congratulating himself. His father told his wife that Uho-yeong had made it, surprising his mother. She remarked that they provided attendance fees while hugging her son. Yang's father said Uho-yeong would become a celebrity, and his mother wondered if they should start a fan club and commercials, but Yang only wanted to play soccer. He was still happy, even though he had expected it, as it was his first achievement since returning to the past. It was also his first time appearing on TV, especially as part of the main cast. He looked up and declared he would definitely succeed. Opening his backpack, he said this was his opportunity to showcase his skills to the world. However, he didn't care about fan clubs or commercials. His sole focus was soccer as he pulled out a ball. He held the ball in his hands and looked at it, then closed his eyes to imagine, thinking about a packed stadium, playing while running across the field, dreaming of playing in Wembley, Old Trafford, Camp Nou, and even Santiago Bernabeu. With a smile on his face and sharp eyes, he started laughing at the thought. Saying he would return after playing soccer, he left the house thinking that skill was more important than the program. For every soccer fan, the dream was to be like Messi or Ronaldo, but he had one desire. In his mind, he wanted to score a hat trick, but currently, his body couldn't keep up with that. The reason was simple: the lack of basic skills. The most fundamental of all basic skills was undoubtedly juggling. The key to keeping the ball airborne without touching the ground was precise footwork, requiring concentration and practice like Maradona's baby steps. Yang began juggling, thinking he would take it step by step, slowly. Even though he was out of breath, he wasn't exhausted. He felt his skills improving day by day. This was the true talent of soccer prodigy. He decided to do it 100 more times, and in the afternoon he went to the field to train his stamina. Because soccer was fundamentally a battle of endurance. No matter how good your technique or shot was, without stamina, it was meaningless. But he knew not to overdo it. He lay on the ground, panting with his arms spread out, thinking he had done 8 laps that day, and looked up at the sky, reflecting on Shoot Dory, declaring he would conquer it. After passing the audition, Yang was determined to succeed, going to bed early every night, waking up in the morning and getting out of bed. He woke up at 6 a.m. and stretched for 30 minutes to improve flexibility. At 1.70 meters tall, he was confident he could reach 1.80 if he continued. After school, he practiced soccer on the field to enhance his skills. He even ate healthy meals and exercised regularly, maintaining this routine with all his effort. Day by day, and before he realized it, the day of Shoot Dory had arrived. Several gleaming cameras were pointed at the children. The kids smiled, all in uniform and ready. Yang was shy as he observed the camera. One of the coaches asked Yang if he was feeling all right, and the boy nodded. His evaluation match was about to begin, and he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. They were up against the Chobum-kun Football Academy, the Goliath of Korean soccer. Uho-yeong approached the Chobum-kun coach, calling out to him. He asked him not to hold back and to go all out from the beginning, even if it meant winning 20-0, as they needed the team to look defeated. reflecting that, after all, their opponents were the best soccer academy in the country. If they lost from the start, the children's spirits would break and viewers would feel devastated for them. Thus, training consistently and with effort, they would eventually emerge victorious. This was a story that would warm the hearts of Korea. Hyun-jae smiled at the thought, reflecting that if this boy succeeded, it would be the perfect ending. He looked at Young, whose promotional video had gone viral, especially because of the child from the tryouts named Uho-yeong. There were rumors that Kim Jong-kook had noticed him, and Hyun-jae thought he should focus on the boy during the match. A miraculous goal scored by this boy would be a perfect scene, though it probably wouldn't happen. After all, no matter how talented he was, soccer was a team game, and their opponent was Chobum-kun FC, the elite team from the Chobum-kun Football Academy. Even if he was a one-man show, it wouldn't be enough. Hyun-jae wondered if his expectations were set too high. One of the producers informed Choi that they were ready to start, and the producer agreed. The children gathered in the center of the field, shaking hands with one another, while the audience cheered and celebrated them. Two commentators narrated the event. Choi Sung-dong announced that they were at the Yongin City Soccer Center, ready for a clash of titans. It was a match between Shoot Dory, a team created to dominate youth soccer, and FC Chobum, a highly skilled team. Kim Byung-jin added that it would be a challenging match. Sung-dong remarked that it was an evaluation match, an opportunity to feel the game, while Byung-jin noted that even if they lost, they would learn about Chobum FC. A coin was flipped into the air, landing in the referee's hand, who announced that Shoot Dory would start with the ball. The children celebrated among themselves for having possession at the start. The audience commented that the kids were truly adorable. The referee blew the whistle and the game began. It was FC Chobum versus FC Shoot Dory. The ball finally left the ground past Young. He wondered what people expected from a children's game. Then he prepared for a shot, thinking they expected kids to be cute and funny, and that was what made this so special. He launched the ball backward with a strong kick. It soared past the entire defense without anyone reacting and went straight into the goal, scoring before the goalkeeper could even move. The commentators were speechless what had just happened. The audience wondered what it was, as Young had scored from midfield just seconds after the start. Young lowered his leg after completing the shot. Hyun-jae was stunned by the scene. The program's producer asked him what just happened. Young ran toward the camera. The other children wondered what he was about to do. Then Young smiled as he approached the spotlight. Choi Hyun-jae told the cameraman not to lose focus and to pay close attention. Young leaped off the ground, preparing his celebration, declaring he wasn't just talented, but also an expert in goal celebrations. He stole Ronaldo's future celebration pose. The goal was scored and the commentators celebrated, saying that player Uho-yeong had shot from midfield straight into the opponent's goal, something impossible for a child to do. They told everyone to watch his celebration. The commentators remarked that his pose demanded victory and was incredible. Meanwhile, the Chobum goalkeeper reflected that it was the first time he had seen such a shot, wondering if Young was really 10 years old. The Chobum coach questioned if the children's level wasn't just neighborhood play. This was Lee Sang-woon, who had served as a national representative and played in the professional league, renowned as a soccer legend. Sang-woon reflected that it was an excellent goal because Young's balance was good, and considering his height, his body shouldn't have the power for such strong shots. The only fact everyone had was that it was probably innate talent, and Young was a child with natural talent. Sang-woon, as someone who had been both a player and a coach, could recognize latent potential, and Young knew how to kick even with his small body, remembering how he had kicked before, and saying that explaining the method was simple, but most kids didn't understand it on their own, and it wasn't something achievable through effort alone, so Young was born for football. He would reach extraordinary heights. The ball goes into the goal again. Won Ki-dong from Chobum scored his third goal, and in the second half, the difference widened to 8-3. But this was normal coming from Chobum, as they only hesitated because of Ho-young's goal, but in an instant, they scored 11 goals. However, the teamwork was generally good, and if Shoot Dory trained better, they could eventually be like that. Young was panting on the field, analyzing everything that had happened, reflecting that this field was 1/6 the size of a stadium, and it was a 6 versus 6 game where the area of activity per person was very spacious. He was completely out of breath. One of the boys showed his arm and asked if Young had seen how he kicked earlier, saying football was a lot of fun, while another child cried, complaining that the ball had hit his face, and a girl told him to rest for a bit. Young thought it was disappointing to see that, but he waited and didn't mind, because once he had an adult body, he could win on his own, as he had talent but not superhuman abilities. There were physical limits to dueling with 6 people alone, but that was okay because he had shown his skills, and that was what mattered. Only 3 minutes remained in the second half, and Chobum kicked the ball to score a goal. The ball was about to land at Ki-dong's feet, who was running after it, but it was intercepted by Ho-young, who stole the ball from him. Young ran forward with the ball without thinking, until he noticed something different on the field. Seeing several players intercepting him, marking him closely, Sang-woo ordered the players to mark number 7 before the second half ended, while reflecting that they would play a primitive football against him because no matter how talented he was. Young simply watched while panting heavily, but he dribbled past all 3 players with a smile on his face. Everyone was impressed, even Sang-woo. Even the commentators said the ball seemed glued to Uho-yeong's foot. Then he effortlessly passed the goalkeeper, kicking the ball straight into the goal and scoring, while moving again to celebrate. Performing Cristiano Ronaldo's celebration once more, with the commentators saying it was a solo performance by Uho-yeong. One of the commentators said Yeong was incredible because it was already his 5th goal, while the other mentioned that he wasn't remarkable during practice but seemed outstanding now, because he was like a crane among chickens. When the talent of a prodigy meets the mind of a 24-year-old, it was unplayable for kids of this age, as it was like the best hardware paired with the newest software. The match ended in seconds with a final score of 14-5 in favor of Chobum FC. Yeong collapsed on the ground, panting heavily, while Chobum FC players celebrated. The boy lay on the ground saying he didn't regret it, as the team hadn't won, but he had done everything he could. And that was football, truly incredible. At this point, he would definitely be a hot topic. A reporter spoke to the camera saying that Chobum FC had won the match, but undoubtedly the best player on the field was Uho-yeong, who had scored 5 goals on his own. Yeong stood up, and the reporter asked if he wanted to give an interview, to which the boy agreed. The reporter then asked how he was feeling now. Yeong stayed silent for a moment, thinking of a response, but then said he was still hungry, copying a famous coach who took a team to the World Cup quarterfinals in 2002. Yeong ran to his mother, who was waiting for him. She hugged him, saying he had done well. Then she asked what he wanted for dinner tonight and whether it would be something Yeong liked. Yeong said yes, as he wanted to eat chicken. His mother asked if he wanted seasoned or fried chicken, and Yeong said he wanted a bit of both. However, someone approached them. It was Sang-woo, who looked at the two. Yeong already knew him and recognized him as he came closer, reflecting that he had really come. Sang-woo introduced himself and said he was teaching kids at the Chobum Kun Football Academy. Yeong's mother says she recognized him because she had seen him on TV. Sang-woo continues, saying that Uho-yeong's football skills were truly impressive, and he felt chills all over his body while watching him. Thanks to Uho-yeong, Sang-woo was reminded of his incredible past, and Yeong's mother tells him to thank him. Yeong thanks him but continues, addressing Sang-woo as Sir. He then wonders why this man would be his teacher. Sang-woo laughs and continues his sentence, saying that he would be straightforward about it. He wanted to teach Uho-yeong, and he asks what Yeong's mother thinks about that. Yeong's mother ponders the question, saying she appreciated his words and asking if her son really had that much talent. Sang-woo explains that at the academy, after 3 months, they assess a child's potential and inform the parents if they could become potential athletes. However, he says this evaluation might be premature, and Uho-yeong was very close to being a genius. This impresses Yeong's mother and Yeong himself. Sang-woo admits that morally he knew it wasn't entirely right, but the desire to work with Uho-yeong wouldn't let him remain idle, which prompts Yeong's mother to ask what he meant by that. The teacher mentions the football academy Uho-yeong was supposedly attending, asking if she could name it. But Yeong's mother clarifies that there was a misunderstanding because Yeong had never attended a football academy. This surprises Sang-woo. Sang-woo asks who taught him how to play football, and his mother says he played with his father when he was young but never received formal training. This amazes Sang-woo once again. Sang-woo is left speechless but agrees, and then asks if she had ever thought about Uho-yeong becoming a football player. Yeong's mother says that if it's good for her son, she would be supportive, and she asks how much the academy would cost. Sang-woo explains that it depends on the entrance test, but Yeong would definitely qualify for the S class. The basic requirement for the S class was talent. If a student didn't have talent, it would be placed in the A class. To enter the A class, one would have to put their name on a waiting list of over 100 people, so entering the S class was a privilege in itself. For 3 lessons a week, the cost would be 120,000 won, but for monthly payments, it would be 900,000 won. Yeong's mother reflects that it was expensive compared to other places, but she felt Yeong needed proper training, so sending him was the best option. The minimum allowance Yeong received was 38,000 won, but it would be hard to cover such a high cost. Nevertheless, she was determined to pay for the academy, even if it meant breaking into her savings, and Yeong addresses his teacher. He asks if he could pay later. Sang-woo is surprised and asks what he meant by that. Yeong says he would become a famous football player and repay him 100 times over. But Yeong's mother scolds him, asking where he learned to talk like that, and Sang-woo says he liked that attitude. He adds that Yeong was an obedient son to her. Yeong simply thanks him for the compliment. Sang-woo extends his hand and says they would make a promise, as they would work hard together for now. Yeong agrees and shakes his hand. Sang-woo tells Yeong's mother that the academy had a special talent program as she asks about it. He explains that the program was for highly talented children like Yeong, functioning as a scholarship. Fortunately, there was an open spot, and he would strongly recommend Yeong to the director. His mother expresses her gratitude, but Sang-woo says that wasn't all. If Yeong grew significantly, they would support his education and establish connections with professional teams, helping him become a world-class player. Sang-woo says Yeong would play with very talented friends, and the boy says it sounded great. Thus, Yeong reflects that the agreement was made and both parties were satisfied. Sang-woo tells them to prepare for the entrance test soon, and Yeong's mother agrees. Yang thinks there would be publicity just from his enrollment, so they would select him as a special student and everything was going according to his plan. For now, he just needed to focus on playing football, as he would now be learning professionally. He then bows to Sang-woo and says he would do his best. Sang-woo simply smiles at the boy. Yang smiles back at his future teacher. Yang walks with his mother, seeing the boys gather together. He reflects that they were from the Chobum-kun Academy and wonders why there weren't any talented kids there. Thus, he looks at Kim Kae-hoon, who had a prodigy-level talent of C+. However, Yang couldn't copy talents lower than his own. Yang reflects that his prodigy-level talent was incredible because Yoon Jung-ho was impressive and was known as the Little Park Ju-hyun, and Sang-woon had the talent to identify other talents, but it wasn't something Yang needed. Then he says that when he went to the academy, there might be someone with exceptional talent. At home, Yang's father, impressed, asks if he really met Sang-woon, saying he should have taken the day off. He mentions that it was sad not to have met Lee Sang-woon, but he was still very happy, and says his son was the best. He goes to the phone and asks for the best pizza from the recent commercials to be delivered because his son had joined Chobum-kun. Yang gets excited upon hearing he would eat pizza. Then he says they almost never eat out. Yang's mother comments that the smell was really good, and his father tells Yang to eat a lot. When Yang wanted to eat pizza in the past, he couldn't ask for it because he knew his family's situation. But in this life, he didn't have to worry, because he would become successful and repay them for it, begging them for the food. Yang grabs a slice of pizza and notices how delicious it was, wondering if it tasted better because he was young or if it was nostalgia for the taste of old pizza. Thus, he couldn't stop himself, and his father asks if it was really that good. Yang agrees and says it was incredibly delicious and his parents were the best. 9 days later, Shoot Dory aired on MBS. Relief, laughter, and emotion combined with the children's cuteness marked the first step towards success, making families cry while watching TV. Young's father congratulates him and Young asks what it's about. He says he received a call from Coach Sang-woon, and they want to admit Young as a special student at the academy. Young is surprised and smiles, but his mother arrives, calling her husband, and asks what they would do. Young's father asks what was going on and what was wrong, but his mother tells him that their son Young had a fan cafe on the internet. Young's father sits with him at the computer and wonders where it was, seeing that his son was truly incredible, as a fan cafe had been created after just 1 day of Shoot Dory airing and it already had over 200 members. Young is surprised there were 200 people, and his father mentions an article about him being the next promise after Park Ji-seok. However, Yang points out that not all comments were positive. Looking at the computer screen where some posts showed a heated debate, anonymous football players were praising him. Yang says it's understandable because currently South Korea had great expectations for football as its peak was in 2002. But after that, several European players emerged and Korean football declined and people wanted a new hero. So it was like he was a light at the end of the tunnel, and even though he was criticized, he still felt good. However, Young's father becomes uneasy after reading something where it said it was a project created by the producer to create a hero, and all the children were acting according to the script. And Uho-yeong was apparently the youngest son of a chaebol family investing money into the program. He calls the person who made that comment a bastard while his son watches. However, Young's mother says it's better not to read it, as those people were just jealous of Young. And Young agrees, saying that's exactly it, making his father question him. Young explains that people were jealous of him, and that was all. Then his father, impressed, asked about it. But he says it was true, and his son was right. Yang reflects that this was natural for celebrities who encounter hate online, especially athletes. But that person was really a bit annoying. Where he says that from the beginning of the Chobum-kun game, they were going easy on him, and he doubted Yang could score a goal against them. So Yang reflects that he would definitely shut those people up. The next day, he went to the Chobum-kun Football Academy. Then he observes the people running, seeing several boys with prodigy-level talents and some making passes, while looking to the other side, and sees talents for breaking through defenses and curved shots. Then he licks his lips and says it seemed they hadn't spared his banquet, and there were plenty of talented kids there, saying it was finally time for him to choose the fourth talent to become his. Yang was training and his mother told Ho-il to watch his brother. Ho-il, the youngest son, watched as his brother controlled the ball with his chest. Yang's mother commented that he was doing well. However, Awon approached her from behind, saying that the baby was really cute. She added that it seemed like the first time she had seen Yang's mother there. Yang's mother agreed and said it was her first time, and the woman asked if she was Ho-yeong's mother, because everyone was talking about him. But the woman remarked that she didn't look like a mother, as she still seemed young and beautiful, and asked if she could speak casually with her. The woman commented that he looked even better in person than on TV, and wondered if he had learned football somewhere before. Yang's mother denied it and said he had been playing football since he was little. But the woman suggested she shouldn't be so modest, and that they should get to know each other better. Yang's mother explained that all he did was play football with his father. The woman asked what Yang's father did for a living and if he was a football player, but Yang's mother explained that he worked at a semiconductor company. This gave the woman an opportunity to probe further. She asked if he was the owner of the company, but Yang's mother simply denied it, explaining that he was a manager, and the woman remarked that it was interesting. She then asked how they managed to pay the tuition fees. Young's mother, however, smiled and said her son was a specialist. The woman asked what that meant, and Young's mother explained that it was a scholarship, meaning he didn't have to pay for the training. The woman questioned why only her son was a scholarship student. But Young's mother explained that her son was truly skilled at football, and the woman should already know that. The woman was left speechless and turned to leave while Young's mother remarked that having a wealthy husband was something to be proud of, but raising a good child was the best thing. Young chased the ball while being marked. Sang-woo noticed that his skills had improved again, and in just 10 days he had evolved at an insane level. However, this wasn't entirely good. In youth, many players like Maradona failed when transitioning to adult teams because theory and practice were different. Therefore, if he grew without balance, it would be like being poisoned. If that happened, it would be a waste of talent. In the S-class, Yang could receive the best lessons from top coaches while learning the basics. He learned how to prevent injuries and the fundamentals of positioning and movement. For example, in physical confrontations, he should focus on his shoulders to gain control of the ball first when competing with someone. He also learned many things he didn't know before, and Sang-woo told him that after running, he should keep running. Yang asked where he should run, and Sang-woo said it didn't matter. What was important was developing the habit of moving. This was how he would develop proper off-ball movement. Off-ball movement was about positioning and knowing where to be to score goals. As a forward, Yang needed to understand this. Yang agreed, saying it was true because scoring goals was very fun. Sang-woo explained that he should always be aware of his movements because having a clear purpose for where he went would give him an advantage. This minimized unnecessary movements, and Yang said he understood. His coach told him he could just copy the movements of great football players. Yang reflected that he was curious about positioning and wanted to talk to his coach about it. When he was younger and didn't know much about football, he thought it was just about dribbling and shooting, but he had learned so much about the game. He realized that moving without the ball was important, and this class had immense value for him. However, the talent in that group was definitely extraordinary. Some players were preparing to train. Yang wondered if he should challenge the first one. Then greed appeared, showing the talent of young Baemin, who had a formidable free kick, with a challenge requiring him to score 3 out of 5 shots against him. Yang scored a goal. Baemin fell to the ground, and another child commented that Yang had achieved victory in the free kick tests. Yang was able to copy a talent, the formidable free kick. He then wondered if he could evolve his curved shot into a knuckleball if he kept practicing. He thanked everyone for the game, reflecting that he should keep his eyes open for any usable talents. The training continues with the children moving. As they ran after the ball, each with their own goals in mind. Yang just observes everything happening and says the class wasn't as good as he expected, as he was eager to see the U13 team in the tournament. And the trainer's talents weren't worth much effort, as the conditions were very restrictive, and he would love to find an active, talented player. Then he reflects that for now, he should take whatever he could, while 2 people talk in the background. Yang lifts his head, noticing this, and looks at the person wearing a cap. He's impressed and asks himself why that person was there. It was Cho-do-rim, a football player nicknamed Cho-kan, Aimless Train, Triceratops, Human Equipment, and Super Charon, the eldest son of Asia's greatest striker of all time, Cha-bum-kun. Cho-do-rim. Yang wonders why a player who performed during the Korea-Japan World Cup was there. However, Cho-do-rim was more handsome than he expected, and it was a pity he would go bald without him knowing. Then he questions whether this was a twist of fate or just a coincidence, but he decides he will observe him. The coach asks if Cho-do-rim will leave for Leverkusen on the 26th of next month, and Do-rim agrees. Yang remembers this event, saying that Cho-do-rim received a call from Leverkusen, where his father had played, and he made his professional debut during the winter transfer window. Yang felt at a crossroads where he was given a choice, because he wouldn't gain skills just by watching from afar, but he couldn't pass up this opportunity, so he decides he will go and see what happens. Activating the screen of greed and seeing Cho-do-rim's talents. His talents included innate quick running at level U, fast legs and passing at rank A, and strong physicality at rank B+, with conditions lasting for 500 minutes. Yang wonders what level U could mean and whether it was unique. But since he saw Cho's quick running first, he thought it was Cho-do-rim's unique talent, and that meant he should acquire it at all costs. Sang-woo asks if Cho-do-rim had all the documentation for the youth competition, and Do-rim says his father asked him to handle it after school. Then Sang-woo says he seems tired and asks if he worked late. Do-rim says he wasn't exactly busy but was still tired. Sang-woo asks if he tried a massage to relax his body, and Do-rim says he knows about it but attributes his fatigue to chronic exhaustion. However, the two are interrupted by Uho-yeong, who greets them both. Sang-woo asks what Yang was doing there, while Yang simply says he had something to give to his older brother Do-rim. Do-rim wonders how Yang knew who he was since he was wearing a deep cap. Then Yang hands him something and Do-rim thanks him, taking a bottle labeled Bacchus. Yang says he couldn't afford Eurosa because he had no money, so Do-rim should take this as it was good for relieving fatigue. Do-rim questions this, but but starts laughing with the boy. Yang reflects that he made a great impression and Sang-woo says he was hitting the mark. Then he tells Do-rim to remember Yang well because he was a promising next-generation player who would lead Korea in the future. Do-rim asks if he was really that good, and Sang-woo says he'll be surprised when he sees him play. The player says that if the coach is saying this, Yang certainly isn't an average player. Then he asks if Yang wants to play football with his older brother. Yang agrees, thinking it's the perfect chance. So the two play football while Yang reflects that the effect of backjust was impressive. After training, both are panting on the field. Do-rim puts his hand on Yang's shoulder and says he's good at kicking the ball and reminds him of Yoon. Yang asks who that is. The player explains that it's someone he's been training, named Ki Sung-yoon, recalling that he's a player who in the future would go to the English League, and he read about it in Cha Bum-kun's autobiography, where he took care of Yoon. So he must have inevitably learned football from Cha Do-rim in the meantime. A legendary player was right before his eyes. Inside the academy, Sang-woo says they did well and asks how they're feeling. Do-rim says it was nice to relive the old days, while Sang-woo says football players solve problems through football. The player agrees but says that his father isn't home and asks if he has seen Yang. Sang-woo replies that he hasn't seen Ho-yeong yet but says he will come next time. Do-rin says his father would take Yang and train him. He then asks if Yang wants to become a football player. Yang agrees, saying that he definitely will be one. Do-rin then tells him that Yang is the only one his father took in and trained. However, Yang starts to say something. He asks Do-rin to take him along and look after him, because he wants to learn football from Do-rin, just like his older brother Ki Sung-yoon. Do-rin responds that Yang already has Coach Sang-woo. Yang, however, asks if he couldn't teach something different from the coaches, because he wants to become an amazing football player like Do-rin and wants to practice with him. Then he pleads with Do-rin, while thinking that a unique talent doesn't come around often, so he must insist until he gets it. Do-rin tells him that with Yang's skills, the coach will take care of him, so he should work hard. Yang asks if he could occasionally visit Do-rin's house, but Do-rin says he is busy and that Yang's parents would worry. The boy thinks it doesn't seem to be working. Do-rin notices his disappointment after being refused. He asks where Yang lives, and the boy answers that he lives in Anyang, Gyeonggi province. Do-rin repeats Anyang and asks what he thought about doing something. Yang's mother apologizes and asks what she could do, because just Yang asking such a thing was troublesome, especially regarding training, but Do-rin says he likes kids who are good at football, and his father had him take care of kids before. However, it would only be for 1 hour a day for a month in a private house where he runs at dawn. Yang's mother asks where his house is, and Do-rin replies that his house is in Jongno, but he is staying in Anyang with a close friend. Yang reflects that he never thought Do-rin was so close, but this was his chance to train together. The next day, Yang approaches him while he is running. He finds the player stretching. Do-rin nods at him. Yang becomes excited and smiles. The two then start running through the streets. Yang reflects that, thinking about it, it was a real inconvenience, so he owed Do-rin a lot. Then Greed appears, saying he could copy a talent. The boy thinks that training with Do-rin allowed him to meet the conditions in just 1 week, and it was easier than expected for a U-level talent. The quick leg passing was tempting, but he felt he should acquire the innate chase speed. He contemplates which one to choose, because the speed Do-rin reaches the ball with is faster than expected, and people even say his legs are quicker, causing balance issues. It is a truly unique talent. Greed warns Yang that it will take him 30 days to fully acquire the talent, and during that time, copying other talents will be entirely impossible. Yang reflects that is the first time he has seen something like this happen, as it feels like digesting food, and he knows that a high-level talent wouldn't be easy anyway. But he doesn't mind because there are no major competitions during his period, and he will eventually gain the talent. Plus, he has gained connections that money can't buy. He thinks this is the true path of a football player. One step at a time, and then another step, because he feels closer and closer to becoming a football player. Time passes quickly as he alternates between training and filming. In mid-November, a member of the Shoot Dory team's management was arrested for altering results, but Shoot Dory continued to grow week by week. On the other hand, in the Premier League, a 16-year-old prodigy debuting for Everton delivered a memorable phrase that caused a sensation in Korea. It was just one phrase: to remember the name Wayne Rooney. In 2002, after Cristiano Ronaldo, another star player was born, and Yang grew up dreaming about his future while watching that debut. On December 11 at the NFC, Yang reflects that he is more nervous than usual because not only is it being broadcasted, but there are also members of the Korean Football Association and journalists present, with cameras pointed at the field and the boys. However, Young's father appears and tells him not to feel intimidated, because those kids might be tall, but Young is good at football. Young agrees and says he will definitely win. Young's father pats his head and says his son is amazing, wishing him good luck. Yang runs on the path. A commentator mentions that Yang's movements have become sharper and asks if Byujin agrees. Byujin agrees and says some people think it's just luck, but he's sure it's not because he's a close friend of Yang. Xiangdong asks if Byujin is already building connections with the next generation, and Byujin jokes that Sangdong has little money. The commentator says if he keeps making jokes like that, people will misunderstand, and Uho-yeong questions if Dory, hungry for victory, will win today. After all, this was their biggest challenge, facing a Brazilian club that had created legends, the São Paulo team. Uho-yeong reflects that São Paulo had players like Titi, Leonardo, Cafu, and Rivaldo who were famous. In 2002, they came to Korea to participate in a Viva World Youth Championship, presented by the Korean Football Association and MBS. The São Paulo players run onto the field. Uho-yeong managed to arrange a friendly match between Dory and São Paulo, which was his chance to increase viewership. Young feels nervous, wondering if they could win. Because Dory had worked hard to improve their skills, but it was impossible to beat São Paulo. They weren't just older, but also bigger. Young notices there's something else too. A player kicks the ball with his heel. Then another boy calls out to Douglas, saying the coach told him that if he scored 10 goals, he would take him to an amusement park. Douglas was a future Brazilian superstar who scored 15 goals in a friendly match with Flamengo's U13 and was so fast that finding a rival his age was difficult. Young wonders if he had been a member of São Paulo, but doesn't matter. He activates greed while looking at him and sees that he is a prodigy with a B+ rank, has driver's legs, and is a genius who surpasses others in mediocrity. However, the cost would be preventing his goals or beating him in terms of speed. Young licks his lips when he reads this, reflecting that it was truly tempting. The coach analyzes that with Costa, he would likely score 10 goals, but after watching the previous game, he noticed Uho-yeong seemed to know how to play football. That coach was Carlos, São Paulo's head coach, who says that, to be honest, the team didn't need any tactics. But he calls Douglas Costa and another player over. They approach their coach with ease. Carlos tells Douglas to relax and think of it as a warm-up since the important match is next week, but he must score 10 goals. Douglas says it will be like stealing candy from a baby. Then he calls the other player, Casemiro, and asks if he sees number 7, who is Young, instructing him to mark him one-on-one. Casemiro asks if that's Uho-yeong, and Carlos says this will be an opportunity for Casemiro to learn something. Casemiro feels offended by this and asks if the coach thinks he will lose. But Carlos tells him not to lose hope because he will see how Young plays, and if he doesn't let him score any goals, they'll go to the amusement park. Then he gathers the team and says it's an 8-on-8 match, which they played 1,000,000 times, but the field is better than usual. In midfield, they will create opportunities, asking his players if they understood. He warns the goalkeeper to be careful with shots from midfield. Casemiro reflects that he will never let those kids win, because the atmosphere was different for one particular person, who must have been Uho-yeong, but he was 15 centimeters shorter than Casemiro, so he would prevent him from scoring. But even if he couldn't, all they needed was for Douglas to score 10 goals to go to the amusement park. Casemiro puts his arm around Douglas's shoulder and says they will do it, and Douglas agrees. Thus begins the match between São Paulo and Dory, a historic match with São Paulo starting with the ball. Then a São Paulo player kicks, and the commentator says they are really something else. Not only did they avoid aimless running from the start, but they also passed the ball in an organized way, which is what makes a world-class team. They were playing while controlling the game by passing through the center. A commentator mentions that Westerners are taller than Asians even as children, making the game difficult, but it will be a good experience. Brazilians aren't as tall as Europeans, but have great agility and athleticism, which is known as samba football. Dory was struggling against a bigger and more physically imposing team, and someone questioned why this was happening. A commentator remarked that it meant the team's roster was too thin, except for Young, and Uho-yeong agreed, joking that they had the home field advantage. However, at that exact moment, Douglas Costa, wearing the number 9 jersey, tried to break through them by dribbling the ball. He extended his first touch for a long time, using his unique speed to destroy their offensive formation. In just an instant, he ran past them. Douglas wondered what was going on, saying the Koreans were terrible. He then kicked, saying he would score his first goal, but someone stepped in front of him. It was Young who intercepted Douglas Costa's goal attempts, sending the ball out of bounds. Douglas asked if it was because his shot was blocked, but Young just stood there with a smile on his face as he watched the outcome, facing Douglas directly. Young stared at him while sweating. Douglas cursed and said Young was just lucky. The game returned to normal. Young intercepted the São Paulo players. The crowd talked about number 7 intercepting the players again and wondered if Douglas Costa wouldn't score. Douglas, however, thought he should have scored 2 goals by now. But not only had he not scored, he hadn't even managed a valid shot except for the first one. His best chances had come and gone, yet Young kept blocking him. That wasn't a coincidence, and Douglas realized Young really knew how to play football. Douglas Costa cursed him again. Then he chased after Young, calling out to him. Young asked what he wanted, but Douglas asked why Young was there. He pointed out that Young was a striker and asked why he was in defense. Young didn't understand because it wasn't in English or Korean, so he scratched his head quickly and said that Douglas Costa wouldn't be scoring any goals today. Douglas Costa became enraged and surprised by this. He asked what Yang had just said while Yang walked away laughing. Douglas reflected that it was the first time he had been humiliated since starting football, and it was by a striker who wasn't even a defender. It was ridiculous. So he decided to show what he was made of. His coach had asked him not to overdo it, but he couldn't just stand still. They were in control of the game with Casemiro in defense, so Douglas declared that he was going to score. Thus began the Shoot Dory team's attack, and the commentator wondered if they could break through São Paulo's defense. Casemiro blocked the ball from reaching a player's feet. Then he looked ahead, kicking the ball hard to make a pass. The ball reached Douglas Costa. Douglas ran, saying he was ready because he had completely broken them down, and the goalkeeper was afraid of his shots. He saw the perfect chance as he wasn't being marked and just needed the ball to score. But someone else approached him. It was Yang, who took the ball from Douglas Costa's feet. Douglas wondered when Yang had gotten there. The ball changed direction, with Yang heading in the opposite direction from Douglas. Douglas asked why a striker like Yang was always in defense, but he declared that with his quick feet, he could catch Yang in time since he had reached this level. So he launched into an immense sprint, but all he could do was run out of breath because Yang stayed ahead of him and Douglas wondered why he couldn't catch him. While Yang was running in front of him, Douglas realized he had lost in a speed battle, and Yang was only getting farther away from him. Douglas stopped on the field for a moment. He sighed as he looked around, grinding his teeth as he thought about it, kicking the ground and asking what the hell was going on there. The commentators noted that Douglas was getting angry, and Yang was showing a different side of himself. While his specialty was long-distance shots, Douglas had been focusing on dribbling instead. Yang was advancing toward the goal without hesitation, thinking that this was Chibdu-rim's way of dribbling, and it was completely unfair. He wondered how talented a football player had to be better than him. But he noticed a step in front of him. Yang activated greed and looked at the boy. The greed interface opened behind him. It showed that the boy was Casemiro, a B+ level prodigy, with B-level ball interception talent and C-level blocking. Yang realized that this was Casemiro, who would later join Real Madrid and become a defensive midfielder and leader for the Brazilian national team. And this was an absolute win for him, with the conditions being either succeeding in a solo breakthrough or scoring a goal. Yang says he will fulfill both conditions right there as he runs toward Casemiro. Casemiro was born in 1992. His position was defensive midfielder. He was called Marcelo's successor and a Brazilian prodigy. The defender reflects that Yang was really fast, but there was something about it, because speed alone was absolutely nothing. Then Yang prepares to kick the ball, striking it with his foot. Casemiro thinks this is the perfect moment, but Yang just sends the ball to the opposite side. Casemiro wonders if he managed to stop the ball. Yang simply passes by him. Casemiro questions how Yang had surpassed him, but Yang chases the ball, having fun. Casemiro notices that Yang is very fast, and it wasn't just fancy footwork, because he kicked the ball far ahead and ran after it. Soon, Yang gets close to the goal. The goalkeeper prepares, saying he must defend this shot, but Yang just shoots from a distance, scoring a goal. Yang mocks the goalkeeper, saying he is really slow. Everyone is amazed, including the commentators, who say that Yang is incredible, because he scored the opening goal against the prestigious São Paulo team. The commentators are smiling, saying they're proud and that the future of Korea is bright. Meanwhile, Hyeon Jao watches with a smile, thinking that Yang surpassed Douglas Costa, São Paulo's ace, and even broke through the center defense led by Casemiro, who was perfect and a master of midfield, dominating both attack and defense. Hyeon gets excited and says that would be the perfect subtitle for this. Our reporter comments that Yang is really good and that the viewership will exceed expectations, with the producer agreeing, saying football is crazy, especially because of Yang, who approaches the cameras, jumping off the ground in a second, and prepares his celebration, shouting as he lands. He reflects that Chibdu-rim's talent is incredible because it feels like having a cheat item in his body. However, he feels a slight pain in his knee. The crowd shouts that this is a victory for Korea. Yang says he's nervous because of 1-1, as he's still playing on a field below his level. Then he runs back into the game, saying he will dominate the entire field. But he notices greed appearing above. He sees that the screen of greed he wanted has appeared, and without a doubt, he chooses to be a B+ level football prodigy. Thus, he levels up and wonders what the conditions for the others might be. Looking at greed, which reappears on Casemiro, it says he must score 2 more goals and make 5 solo breakthroughs. However, there are only 30 minutes left and Yang thinks he can do it. Carlos is on the sidelines with his players and reflects that he can't push Diego Costa's condition before the tournament, so he tells the boy he will substitute him. Diego says his condition is just bad, but he can do better. Carlos says if his condition is bad, it's better for him to rest on the bench. And Diego had learned something very valuable that day, so he should sit on the bench and think about what he learned to show it next time. Diego Costa asks how it's possible to learn from Asians since he is a Brazilian who will become the national football team star. But his coach gets angry and asks what he just said. He tells Diego to listen carefully because those racist remarks could be marked as a red card. And if he doesn't recognize the skills of others, he should watch as a spectator to understand the truth. Douglas watches the game from the bench, looking tired as he observes. Meanwhile, Uho-yeong continues advancing in the final seconds with great momentum, and even São Paulo struggles against this initiative. São Paulo's defenders complain as Yeong approaches. Douglas wonders how Yeong can do this at his age. But Carlos says that Douglas turned 12 2 months ago, and the boy agrees. Carlos explains that he is not like this young player, but Ronaldo made his professional debut at 14. Douglas agrees, and the coach says he knows what he's talking about, because the only people who will tolerate Douglas's behavior are his fans, but even that requires skill. Douglas apologizes to his coach, and Carlos reflects that Yeong has great stamina, solid muscles, and his speed with the ball is incredible. He says he has trained many kids and football players, but this boy is on a different level. Wondering where in the world such a monster could have come from, the ball bounces on the ground. The goalkeeper just dodged the ball as it headed toward the goal. With that, São Paulo had scored. The commentators joked, saying the team just needed time to adjust to the environment, and that São Paulo's players wouldn't give up. Yeong was getting tired, thinking that he was losing energy because football definitely couldn't be played alone. However, if he could beat a strong Brazilian team, it would be a big deal, and he really wanted to win that day. He mumbled, complaining that he truly wanted it. Then he advanced against the São Paulo players, urging them to run faster. The match finally ended with the score being 4-9 in favor of São Paulo. Carlos reflected that he had managed to hold on to his last bit of pride. This match was supposed to be a morale booster for the youth tournament, and he wondered how it ended up like this. Meanwhile, Douglas watched the game from the bench, but he had been surprised, and that was a good thing as he looked young. Carlos commented to an analyst that Yeong had potential, and the analyst agreed, saying Yeong reminded him of the way Ricardo used to play a few years ago. His speed with the ball was incredible, and while his normal speed wasn't great, he was explosive once he started. The analyst was curious about how he would mature. He remarked that Yeong had talent and technique and could become a star. Carlos agreed but complained that Yeong's fundamentals were poor, though he was quick and brilliant. Above all, Yeong loved playing football. At this level, it seemed like Yeong was a good player. The analyst joked that the comment about loving football was spot on. Whether Yeong would become a shining genius, an average player, or a mediocre one depended entirely on his future. Yeong's father said they lost, but it was a great match, and his mother agreed. However, someone approached them, calling out to them and catching them by surprise. It was Carlos and his analyst, and Yeong's father recognized them. Yeong's mother greeted them in Spanish. Carlos asked if she spoke English, and she explained that she was born in Spain. He introduced himself as the youth coach for São Paulo and said he wanted to speak with them at some point. Yeong's mother asked what she could do for the coach. Carlos wondered if her son belonged to a youth club, because in football there were no borders and her son was like a diamond that needed polishing. He said he wanted to offer Yeong a youth contract where he would receive training at his club, and asked what they thought about it. Yeong thought as greed appeared. He wanted to choose which talent to take from Casemiro and Douglas. He reflected that Casemiro's talents were both defensive, but they were at a B level. As for Douglas, he was in a dilemma. Yeong already had the B+ level football prodigy talent, and copying it again might yield no results. So he wondered if he should go for the racing legs talent. After all, Douglas had a skill called charge and sprint, which allowed him to generate explosive speed when he had the ball. But when receiving a pass, he was slow, and using it repeatedly could strain his knees. Yeong decided it would be better to complete the quick legs talent because, while there were many football prodigies, most weren't that fast. Off-the-ball movement was essential for a player, along with improving medium-range shots. So he took the racing legs and instant ball reception talents. Yeong thought it was amazing, feeling like his legs were full of energy, and it was absurd. If things continued this way, he felt he would become an unprecedented football player. Greed appeared in front of him, saying he needed 7 days to assimilate the talent and couldn't copy others during this time. Yeong thought he had copied a lot already. He reflected that considering Rim's talent took 30 days to assimilate, this was reasonable, and he just needed to train for a week. Meanwhile, a journalist approached Yeong, saying he was the one who had scored a hat trick that day. The journalist noted that Yeong seemed in a good mood, but Yeong replied that he was disappointed about losing, though it was fine. The reporter joked that even in defeat, Yeong was acknowledging the opponent. Yeong explained that winning and losing were important, but above all, he wanted to score a goal that day. The reporter remarked that Yeong had been running more than on previous days and wondered if he had a special reason. Yeong joked, saying he wanted to show that he could score against foreign teams since some people doubted him. The reporter asked if that had motivated him because Yeong seemed grateful. Yeong laughed, saying his haters were his fans. The reporter laughs and turns around, saying that was the interview with Uho-yeong. The producers of Shoot Dory were watching this on an old 2 TV. Hyun-jae stands up laughing, saying Yeong was a funny guy. He adds that without a doubt, the views for this episode would go viral. Food was set on the table. Yeong is surprised when he hears about being scouted by São Paulo. His mother says he needs to enroll in school and pass normal evaluations because FIFA wouldn't allow it now since he's too young. Yeong says he understands because he's too young to travel alone, and his mother praises him, calling him smart. Article 19 of FIFA's regulations states that only players over 18 can be transferred abroad, a system designed to protect young athletes. He reflects that this means they would take disciplinary action, and it didn't seem like they would lose. But the fact that São Paulo won a contract showed they had a plan. He then tells his parents that he doesn't understand why Carlos, the coach, left without saying a word. His mother explains that there were many journalists and people interested in Yang, so they only had a short conversation. Yang asks what they said, and his father says it was obvious. They said no. Yang is shocked and asks why. His father says they told them they couldn't send their 10-year-old son abroad, and that it wouldn't be a good idea. Yang feels sad about this, but his father reveals it was just a joke. Since he didn't speak Spanish, he only thanked them and left, but Yang's mother led the negotiations. Yang asks what his mother said about it. She explains that everything would be fine if Yang was happy with it. Yang stands up, overjoyed, and his mother asks if he's happy. He agrees, thinking that Brazil is synonymous with football, and he couldn't believe he had such an opportunity. It was amazing to have the chance to gain talent from young South American players. It wasn't just a simple exchange, he would also earn money to play. His mother says they mentioned having many Korean friends, but Yang would still need to learn a language as Portuguese is spoken in Brazil. Yang agrees, saying he'll start learning. He reflects that he just needs to keep trying because he wants to leave as soon as possible. At home later that night, Yang sits at the computer thinking he still has to wait for the youth tournament with Carlos, wondering what to do until then. He remembers hearing that Chaebum-kun would also participate in the tournament. He's surprised to see that 16 teams will participate, making it truly a festival of youth, thinking it's a full banquet. It's the MBC World Youth Football Championship, starting on the 18th and ending on the 16th, and he notes it's only 5 days away. He steps away from the computer, saying he has a chance. But the problem is, his legs start hurting as soon as he stands up. The problem is the pain in his knees because he's overexerted himself, so he needs to be careful moving forward. It's not just about having good football skills. He needs the physical strength to use them consistently. Even Ronaldo suffered injuries from his game due to overheating his thighs and knees, so the most important thing is to prevent injuries. His mother arrives at that moment and asks Yang what's wrong, and if his leg hurts. Yang tries to make an excuse, saying it's because he's growing taller, but his mother touches his knee. She kneels down and massages it while calling his name. She tells him that if it's too hard, he can stop, because all she wants is for him to be healthy. Yang agrees with her words, and thinks he wants his mother to be healthy too. Later, lying in his room, he touches his knee under the blanket, feeling that the pain has subsided, and realizing that his mother's hands are good at massaging. The next day, there's a broadcast talking about Yang being the star player who scored the first goal against São Paulo. The program says they are proud of him, while Sang-woo mentions there's 1 week until the tournament, but with Yang's skills, it would be a mistake to worry. He asks what coach Chaebum-kun thinks. Chaebum-kun, the legendary figure in Korean football, is sitting on the sofa. He says it's like watching Showdown as a child. Sang-woo asks what he means by that, and Bum-kun explains that Yang runs like crazy, but he's still intelligent, so he thinks Yang will be a fun player to watch. Sang-woo asks what Chaebum-kun thought. Chaebum-kun said he needed to see it for himself but was busy with work, and asked when a lesson would take place. Sang-woo replied it would be at 2:30 the next day. The academy leader said he would call the child's parents the next morning because that child would also be attending. The next day at the Chaebum-kun Academy, Yang and his mother were greeted by Bun-kun, who said, "You must be Uho-yeong." Yang wondered if that was really Chaebum-kun, but he nodded and introduced himself as Uho-yeong, thinking that a football legend was standing right in front of him. Chaebum-kun placed his hand on Yang's head and asked if he was a striker. Yang nodded and Chaebum-kun said he was interesting. Then he asked Ms. Wu to speak with him inside. Inside Bun-kun's office, Yang's mother agreed with him. She asked if he meant that Yang would participate in a competition based on a simple test. Chaebum-kun nodded and said yes, if she allowed it, and Yang was fine with it. Judging by Yang's expression, he seemed excited, and the boy confirmed it. Bun-kun asked Ms. Wu for her opinion, saying that if her son was happy, she would likely agree. Yang reflected that this was an opportunity to participate in the Youth World Competition, and all he had to do was pass the tests, something he was determined to do. Out on the field, Bun-kun entered. Yang was impressed as soon as he passed through the gates, thinking that this was the under-13 team. He remarked that it was his first time observing older students, but he noticed a boy and wondered why he was so tall. He looked like a giant and had to be over 1.70 meters. Yang activated Gree while observing him. The interface revealed Hyeon-jun as a C+ level prodigy with a B+ growth potential and B confident play style. Yang thought those were incredible talents. Then he remembered to ask Chaebum-kun about the test format. The coach explained that it would be a normal 11v11 game. Yang realized this wouldn't be easy at all. Suddenly, he was standing in front of the opposing team. The match began with a kickoff. 2 boys ran with the ball at their feet. Yang reflected that his team was using a 4-4-2 tactic, aiming for 2 forwards to go after scoring opportunities. His role was that of a poacher striker. Examples of poacher strikers were Filippo Inzaghi, Ronaldo Fenomeno, and Ruud van Nistelrooy, where the position focused on scoring goals and finishing plays. Therefore, he expected to be marked more intensely. Yang found himself unmarked on the field as 2 players exchanged passes. He raised his hand, signaling for the ball to be passed to him. He even shouted that he wanted a pass, wondering why they wouldn't pass to him. Were they treating him like he was invisible? But he noticed that these kids were showing their veteran attitudes in this moment, so he made an explosive move forward, deciding to get the ball himself. One of the players being marked complained, but then looked to the side and saw Yang unmarked. He shouted for them to pass the ball to him, stopping both his teammates and the opposing players. Sang-woo thought it was truly amazing but tried not to laugh, while Bun-kun commented that Yang had style. The coach questioned this, and Bun-kun explained that if there was distrust among team members, one had to show their skills, something he himself had done in Germany. As Johan Cruyff once said, happiness in football comes from having the ball, and even if there's a risk of losing it, that's football. Just by looking at Yang, Bun-kun could tell he was putting this into practice without hesitation. Yang shouted while running after the ball, declaring it was his, and his teammate did the same, insisting the ball was his. But Yang accelerated explosively, taking possession of the ball and commenting that it was a good pass. His teammate asked what he was doing and why he intercepted the pass. However, if they wouldn't accept him as a teammate, Yang decided to make them recognize him. He ran toward the goal, shouting, dribbling past all the defenders. He told himself to push through. The defenders looked at Yang, wondering how he was so fast and what kind of madness this was. But Yang simply made everyone move out of his way because he was the striker who craved goals. Other defenders tried to group up and stop Yang, but Yang just kicked the ball high. It went over one of the players, who asked what had just happened, until the pass reached the number 9 jersey. Yang tells him to make a header, and Hyeon-jun does so, hitting the ball into the goal before the goalkeeper can catch it. Greed notifies Yang that he fulfilled the condition of making 15 or more assists in matches and playing football with him for 250 minutes, completing one of the conditions, because he was determined to reach at least 1.80 meters tall in this life. Hyeon-jun was a player once called the Korean Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He comments that Yang made a great pass, and Hyeon-jun's weapon was his towering height, currently at 1.70 meters, and expected to reach 1.90 by age 12. For a Korean who was generally not very tall, surpassing 1.90 meters was a talent. Therefore, growing significantly wasn't a bad talent. It was a difficult condition since it depended on genetic talent, but Yang was determined to overcome it. He recalls the ball going to Hyeon-jun, and Hyeon-jun heading it into the goal. Then he approaches Yang and celebrates with him. Back in Cho Bum-kun's room, he remarks that Yang scored a goal and made 3 assists in the first match, and Yang agrees. Bum-kun asks if he prefers assisting or scoring goals, and Yang says he prefers scoring. The coach then asks why he passed the ball to Hyeon-jun to score the goal. Yang explains it was to lower the team's guard and make them accept him, though it was a lie. Cho Bum-kun says he can understand his teammates and that Yang will be part of the competition class from now on, so he will meet with his parents. Yang agrees with the coach's words, while activating Greed on him, revealing several talents and conditions. Greed notifies him that faded talents are not visible, but he can acquire a talent if he scores 30 goals from 30 meters and reaches the semifinals. Yang licks his lips at this sight. Cho Bum-kun asks why Yang is staring at him like that, but Yang says it's nothing. He reflects that he was staring too much and wonders if the L in the talent of Bum-kun's thighs stood for legend, as he had never seen this classification before. Cho Bum-kun's signature was his 31-inch thighs, which characterized his power as a runner, so Yang wasn't going to let it pass. And as expected of a legend, the conditions were quite difficult, making him question whether he should really covet them, as Cho Bum-kun was truly exceptional. Cho Bum-kun asks if Yang heard anything from São Paulo since last time Flamengo took a player. Yang says he received an offer, and Bum-kun asks what he plans to do. The boy excitedly says he would like to go, leaving Cho Bum-kun smiling. Cho Bum-kun says it's a good decision because even though it's difficult, he must continue if he wants to become a good player and experience various countries. Yang thanks him for the advice, and Cho Bum-kun tells him to keep in touch when he goes abroad and to inform him if he needs anything. Yang just smiles and agrees with his coach. From that day on, he actively participated in team training and began to integrate, providing assists whenever possible to Seok Hyeon-jun. Because of this, his position changed from goal hunter to second striker. Sang-woo explains that the second striker supports the main striker and contributes to scoring goals, acting as both a midfielder and a forward capable of dribbling, breaking through, passing, and shooting. Therefore, Yang should take the initiative in the attack but not carry too much of the burden and remain confident. Yang simply thinks his coach is contradicting himself, but he only agrees with a smile. The day before the competition, Yang makes a pass. Hyeon-jun runs toward the goal while following the pass, heading the ball into the goal and scoring a point. Hyeon-jun says Yang made a great pass, and Yang praises his header. Sang-woo reflects that their interplay is almost perfect, and at this level, they will at least reach the quarterfinals. Even if they face European giants like the Netherlands, Portugal, or Germany, they won't fall behind. He then shouts that everyone did a great job and should change and rest afterward. Yang walks away thinking this was the last team practice, and Greed shows that the first mission is complete. He has fulfilled condition 1, and now all that's left is Condition 2. The game lasts 50 minutes, meaning he must at least reach the quarterfinals. The next day, December 18th, Seongdong announces that the World Youth Championship is finally starting, and he will be the commentator while Seon-man will be the analyst. He says it's the first World Youth Championship hosted in Korea, and the analyst agrees, mentioning it's a tournament following the World Cup. The players were finally entering the stadium. The match was set to be between Cheobam FC and the Polish national team. Yeong stepped onto the field wearing his number 7 jersey. He thought to himself, this is it. There was a natural grass field, and even though there were no spectators, he felt like a true football player. Yeong greeted one of the Polish players, thinking he might have met Lewandowski if he had been there a few months earlier. Lewandowski, the man who would become one of the best strikers in the world alongside Suarez and Kane, the legend of Poland. Yeong thought it was truly a shame. He could have met a future legend, but what mattered most was winning the game. With a smile on his face, he looked at the Polish players. This was the beginning of the game between Cheobam FC and the Polish national team. Seongdong asked the analyst what he thought about the game, and Myung-seok said it was a match they could win, because Woo-yeong's presence was a variable. Cheobam FC's formation was 4-4-2, a tactic applying pressure all over the field. Meanwhile, the Polish national team competing against them deployed a 4-2-3-1 formation to handle their physical abilities. The Polish players shouted to lock down the center. Camille passed the ball to another Polish player. The 5 midfielders began passing the ball, dominating the field. Camille shouted for Jaros to go now, then kicked the ball forward, surprising the Cheobam FC players as the ball was passed forward. Their defensive formation broke as a player advanced. Jarosław Kaczynski managed to break through Cheobam FC. He thought that as long as he kept his first touch steady, he could compete one-on-one. The ball would land at his feet, but it was intercepted by Yeong. Jaros wondered why a striker was there. Yeong then bit a high cross, passing it to a teammate. However, a Polish player blocked him, questioning if Yeong thought they'd just let him pass with the ball. But Yeong simply dribbled past him without the ball. The Polish player questioned if Yeong didn't have the ball after all. A Cheobam player saw Yeong running across the field, then passed the ball to him. Yeong thought it was an amazing pass. Yeong now faced 3 defenders. The defenders tried to stop Yeong, who had possession of the ball, but Yeong exploded with speed, lifting off the ground. He came face-to-face with player number 5 while running, passing between them with his explosive run. Player number 5 commented that Yeong was a monster. Yeong then faced the goalkeeper, but he just focused, bursting forward with the ball, scoring by running into the goal with it. In the 7th minute of the first half, Cheobam FC scored their first goal, with Yeong as the scorer. Teammates congratulated Yeong, joking that the Polish players were embarrassed. Yeong reflected that he tried to score in style, but his legs were moving so fast he couldn't control them. Seongdong commented that the goal came from a 60-meter sprint, and Myung-seok said Yeong had the potential to be an athlete because he was so promising. The Polish coach asked who this boy was and how he could be only 9 years old. But he added that no matter how much he thought about it, it was like bringing a rocket launcher to a fighting competition and using it. A Cheobam FC player was being marked by players wearing jerseys 11 and 7 and thought that if it continued, he'd lose the ball. Then he saw Yeong open in the middle of the field, ready to take the ball. He passed it to Cheobam FC's number 7. Yeong easily received the pass and looked around for an opening, but he noticed there wasn't any space. So he shouted for Uho-yeong to run, surprising Cheobam FC's number 9 player, and a Polish defender wearing jersey number 3. The commentators noted that Yeong was looking for Uho-yeong, and the boy needed to stay calm and make a connection. Yeong thought Uho-yeong gave a good response. He then dribbled past the Polish player, marking him, thinking that Uho-yeong was moving as expected. However, just as the commentator mentioned this, Yeong escaped to the side. Yeong told himself that he had to make this play. Uho-yeong was being marked by 2 players behind him, but he called for the pass. Yeong thought it was a signal for a long pass, and there was no way the ball could be stolen in the air. If it got through, it would set up the assist. But Yeong hesitated, looking forward. He saw the path to the goal was clear, then prepared to shoot the ball. The commentators denied the possibility, saying it was a surprising mid-range shot. The goalkeeper cannot reach the ball that Yeong launches. Thus, the ball goes in and goal is scored. Seongdong says that Yeong chose not to make the assist but to take the shot, and Myung-seok adds that he opened an excellent surprise shooting angle. Yeong celebrates, saying he did it and couldn't believe he pulled off the move he imagined. Then he jumps forward, celebrating while wondering if Ronaldo always felt this way. Imitating Cristiano Ronaldo's celebration again, Yeong laughs as he looks at Greed, thinking that his heavy mid-range shot had improved. He wonders if he could also grow Chodurim's talent and, if possible, surpass even the original. Yeong wanted to play more soccer because just running on the field made him happy, and he would keep going without injuring his knee, aiming for a hat trick. The player Uho-yeong scored his second goal, and the Polish team was under pressure. The Polish players wondered who on earth Yeong was because he was a monster on the field. Then they were startled as they saw the demon of greed behind him. But Yeong looked back when someone called him. Uho-yeong asked why he didn't pass the ball. Yang thought there was no need to pass since the condition was fulfilled and said they had to win first. Hyeon-jun complained nonetheless, but Yang told him to wait because they would have another opportunity. In the second half, in the 120th minute with only 13 minutes left in the game, Yang prepared the ball for another shot, aiming for the corner of the goal, scoring and achieving a hat trick. The commentators said he was truly incredible because he was a player with a bright future and could even be selected to win the golden ball of the tournament. A Chobum FC player had possession of the ball. He looked across the field for opportunities. Then he noticed that everyone was focusing solely on Yang after the hat trick. So he kicked the ball forward. Yang sprinted explosively, chasing the ball launched ahead of him. He controlled it and kept running with it. Yang reflected that the pass had been too far and the defender was already there, and his situation wasn't ideal. But he heard someone calling him. It was Hyeon-jun, who was unmarked. He was shouting with all his might. Yang made a pass thinking Hyeon-jun should head it directly. Hyeon-jun saw the ball flying over him, and he headed it into the goal with ease. The commentator said it was a fantastic assist and the fourth goal for Chobum FC. Hyeon-jun raised his fist to the crowd to celebrate with his mother, and she beamed with pride at her son's gesture. Yang thought it was a celebration for Hyeon-jun's mother. Then he looked into the crowd, seeing his own mother watching his game too. Yang gave her an oak signal with a bright smile. Hyeon-jun patted Yang on the back and said it was a great pass, and thanked his teammate. Yang said soccer was a team game because life was lonely, but soccer was about teamwork. In the post-game interview, a journalist introduced Yang, saying he was the protagonist who led Chobum to a 4-0 victory, and asked how he felt being the highlight of the game. Yang said they won because his teammates helped him well. The journalist commented that it was a mature response and asked if there was anything else he wanted to say. That young boy pointed to his chest and said he loved his parents and everyone, which is why he would become the best soccer player in the world, and asked for their support. At home, Yang was watching this interview, feeling embarrassed and wondering why he did that, thinking it looked like he was in an emo phase with strange poses. Meanwhile, on the internet, the person who previously said Yang couldn't score against foreign teams switched sides easily. Thus, Yang's fanbase was growing. The next day, they played against Djurgårdens IF from Sweden, and after a tight match, they won 3-2. Then against Porto FC, where it was tough, but Yang's multiple goals resulted in a dramatic draw. And the following day, in the quarterfinals against Paraguay, Hyeon-jun and Yang scored 2 consecutive goals to secure a comeback victory. Finally, in the locker room, Yang said it was the semifinal, and their opponent was Japan's U13 team, the second-place team in Group A, and if they won, they would head to Sangam. Thus, all the Chobum players shouted that they would win. Entering the field immediately after, Yang and Hyeon-jun faced the U13 players. This was the start of the match between Chobum FC and Japan, where Yang didn't want to lose the game, especially not to Japan. The players greet each other after the kickoff. Yang notices a player and says he is Japan's key player, Koga Shinji. So he uses greed on him, trying to visualize his talents, and notices that Shinji is a prodigy with a B rank, has the delicate touch talent at C+ rank, and off the ball running at C rank, with the condition of winning and stealing the ball 5 times. He wonders why he needs to steal the ball 5 times since he's a striker and not a defender, but since this is the case, he decides to play a free role. Then he approaches Shinji, calling out to him. Yang points at Shinji with his finger, saying he's going to bite the dust. Shinji wonders if Yang is crazy. Yang thinks that the free roll is a style that allows the player to roam freely across the field and requires excellent judgment to play in the right positions. Nevertheless, he decides to try it, telling Shinji to come at him because wherever Shinji goes, Yang will follow. The score is 0-0. In the 7th minute of the first half, the Japanese team increases their tempo, making passes. One of the players passes the ball to Shinji, who receives it, but hears his teammate shouting at him to retreat because Yang is chasing him. Yang runs at an incredible speed while sweating profusely. Shinji notices how fast Yang is and wonders why a striker is pressing him so far back, especially since he has quick feet and powerful shot. Realizing it's a battle of skills, Shinji quickens his pace, thinking Yang can't keep up with his ball control. Sang-woo shouts, asking why Yang is so far from his position, but is surprised by the boy because Yang steals the ball from Shinji, making the Japanese player question what just happened. However, Yang changes his route running with the ball. Sang-woo notices he took the ball cleanly and wonders when Yang got so good at defending, while his teammates shout it's a counterattack. Yang is using precise ball interception, a talent he acquired from Casemiro. Shinji looks at him and thinks about how a striker could steal the ball from him so easily, but he gets furious, saying he's never felt so humiliated. In other moments when Yang challenges him, Shinji wonders why. Why nothing seems to work against him. Yang feels happy while Shinji grows increasingly enraged. Condition 2 had been completed, and now he just needed to win the match. He grips the ball with his foot and says he can now focus on attacking, stomping the ground with great force, then advancing explosively. The Japanese players wonder what kind of monster they are dealing with, and the Japanese coach tells his team not to let number 7 through, warning them to watch out for long-distance shots and to drop back to avoid giving him a shooting angle. Yang, however, looks to the side, seeing one of his teammates who is unmarked. Yang passes to him saying it's a rebound, while a Japanese player wonders if it's a pass. The teammate receives the ball with ease and Yang tells him to run, then plays the ball forward and catches it, heading into open space. Yang prepares to shoot the ball, seeing Uho-yeong at his side following the play. Then Yang strikes the ball powerfully, aiming for the top corner of the goal, but the ball hits the post. The crowd reacts with surprise. Then Yang claps, saying Uho-yeong will do a great job. The ball reaches Uho-yeong's head, and he heads it in to score a goal, giving Korea the lead. Yang celebrates with his teammate. After that, the match became completely one-sided, with Japan unable to do anything but defend. The game ends with a 3-0 victory for Chobum FC. Seong-dong says that Yang scored a goal and provided an assist in just the second half, while Myong-seok comments on how Yang showcased both his offensive and defensive skills. The Chobum FC team celebrates joyfully, saying they are one step away from the final. Yang says they just need one more win to become champions, and the next match will be Germany against São Paulo, with the winner being Chobum FC's opponent in the final. They wonder who will win. The match between São Paulo and VfB Spengel ends with Germany winning 3-0. Yang thinks it's disappointing to see São Paulo unable to put up a fight, as they were considered strong contenders for the title. It was surprising how players over 1.70 meters tall looked more like high school students than elementary school kids, and with that physique, he couldn't even keep up. Yang reflects that reaching the final was already great, but the challenge had been tough. Then greed appears, showing that the talent he had chosen was Shinji Koba's delicate touch on the ball, and he reflects that this was his 8th talent. Seeing the C+ level skill, Yang thinks he needs to run with Seok Hyeon-jun for 20 minutes in the final to grow, so he decides to use the talents he already has. But then someone approaches Yang, calling out to him. It was Koga, who was wearing his team's uniform. He extends his hand and says he will win next time. Then Yang shakes his hand. Yang says that Koga played well too, though he doesn't understand what he's saying since it's in Japanese, but assumes it's a compliment. The next day in Seoul at the Sangam Stadium, the players enter the field. Yang's supporters shout for him not to lose because he would make it. Then Chobum FC faces the German club. The referee blows the whistle, starting the final of the Youth World Championship. The match between VfB Spengel and FC Chobum begins. Germany had truly tall players, but the main focus for Yang was on Volgo Batsuver. He was evaluated as the future of German defense and always stayed in the front line due to his impressive height. Thus, Yang uses greed. Seeing him as a football prodigy with exceptional defensive positioning and strong blocking skills, the condition was to win the game and score a goal with 10 assists. Yang reflects that Volgo didn't have extraordinary talents, but he was very tall, making Yang feel like an ant next to a giraffe. The ball crosses the goal net. In 15 minutes of play, VfB Spengel takes the lead. Yang is running and notices how difficult it is, because the tall players are blocking him from every possible angle, making it impossible to do anything, simply because he's the striker. He tells them to wait and see because he'll score a goal anyway. Then he runs, shouting that he'll make it. But a goal occurs and VfB Spengel scores again. And another goal happens as well, making it 3-0, with Germany aggressively dominating the field. Myong-seok says that the height difference is 20 centimeters and it's hard to compete with just skills. Seong-dong comments that this would be a good experience for Chobum FC. But just as he says that, Uho-yeong tries a central run with the ball, using his explosive sprint against them. But at the same time, Volgo Batsuver moves in front of him. Yang tells him to get out of the way, colliding with him shoulder to shoulder. Volgo is sent flying away. Yang has the same result, but in the opposite direction. The referee blows the whistle at that moment, walking up to Uho-yeong and giving a red card to Batsuver, expelling him from the field. Yang thinks it fortunately worked out for him. Then he prepares to take the free kick, thinking he just needs to guarantee this goal, reflecting that he should try something new. Approaching the ball, the goalkeeper thinks Yang is already going to shoot. Then Yang positions his foot to strike the ball, touching the top of the ball and launching it over the wall. The goalkeeper jumps, trying to catch the ball, but it slips from his hand. Thus, a goal is scored by Chobum FC. The crowd cheers for Yang because of it. Yang jumps off the ground with ease, celebrating in the air, thinking that he did it, and performing his new signature celebration. That was a talent acquired from Chobum Kun's S-class skill, stylish free kick, and it was the first time he used it in the tournament, but it worked. Thus, the game ends. VfB Spengel secures the victory with a 3-1 scoreline. Yang reflects that it was his first defeat since joining the tournament, and even so, it was a hard-fought match. But he says he will definitely win next time. The U13 Youth World Championship ends with Germany as the champion, and unfortunately, Chobum FC finishes in second place. Yang, who registered 10 goals and 5 assists, was selected as the top scorer and awarded the Golden Boot, earning 4 million won. The boy smiles and laughs, thinking he earned another reward. Then greed tells him he can choose a talent to copy from Uho-yeong between the open growth panel or confident heading. Yang chooses the open growth panel, Thus, Young's number of talents increased to 9. The crowd cheers as the Chobum team approaches, shouting that Uho-yeong was incredible and the best. Hamjun asks if that was a fan club and says it was really cool. Young gets emotional when he sees he has fans, saying that next time he will definitely win, while thinking that this marked the beginning of his journey to becoming the best football player in the world and winning everything. On the bus, he startles the driver by shouting for him to hurry up. The driver complains, saying he had to stop because the light was red, but Young asks what country comes to mind when talking about football. The driver says it's definitely Brazil. Young asks if he's serious with a smile on his face. On January 6 in São Paulo, Brazil, Young's parents step off the plane, saying it's incredibly hot, and Young's father comments that it's the middle of hell in Korea. Then a girl calls out to them, saying they should follow her. She introduces herself as Maria Choi, saying she's the eldest daughter of the family Young will be staying with. And she introduces Lucas Kim, saying he is the local support officer for São Paulo FC, and Lucas says it's a pleasure. He bends down and asks if that's Uho-yeong. Lucas says he's seen him a lot on TV, and that he's even more adorable in person. And he welcomes the family in the city of Vitoria when the family stays. Inside the house, Maria says the physical fitness test will be in 2 days, and until then, they should rest in the accommodation. And Uho-yeong's room will be on the 2nd floor, asking if he'd like to take a look, to which he agrees. They go upstairs while someone comes down. Young sees a tall blonde girl with blue eyes, who looks at him as she passes. Young looks at her too. The girl says hello to them, and Maria does the same. Young reflects that it was Portuguese and she was tall with big eyes like a doll's. Maria says her name is Monica, and she's staying in the room next to Young's, and she's also 10 years old. Young says he thought she was in high school, but Maria just shows Young his room, admiring the boy. Young says it's really beautiful. 2 days later, they are in a room, and Lucas explains that he will conduct a medical test to determine which team Young will join. Therefore, Young should think of it as a physical test and not get nervous, and the boy agrees. Then Lucas leaves and closes the door to the room. Lucas excuses himself to Young's parents and asks about their heights, where the mother is 1.68 meters and the father is 1.66 meters. A Sao Paulo supporter comments that the mother is taller, and Young's father says he's just a bit shorter. Lucas apologizes, explaining that Young is undergoing a growth examination, and even with a low result, the club has a system for that. Young's father thanks him and thinks that his son should have good results. Then the phone in that room rings. Lucas says the results are extremely good, and Young's parents repeat it in Portuguese. Lucas laughs and says he means they're really good because the test results have arrived. And the height potential of Uho-yeong. Young is told he could grow between 1.82 meters and 1.89 meters. The family celebrates this result. Young reflects that it was thanks to Hyung-jun's growth plate talent, and when he becomes a great player, he'll repay it. And Young's father breathes a sigh of relief. Lucas presents a schedule for the future, discussing the youth team, academy, and FIFA's Article 19 on transfer regulations. Young says he understands everything, and in other words, he should just focus on football and nothing else. Lucas agrees and says even if there's a problem, they'll solve it, but Young won't stay there forever. Young agrees and thinks Brazil is just a transitional phase because he wants to visit many clubs, as staying in one place is boring. Lucas says player registration is in April, and Young will learn the basics at the academy until then, and afterward, they'll calculate Young's GPA based on medical results. And he explains that GPA is the score required for the contract, with a passing grade of 6.5 out of 10, and the contract terms depend on the score. But even if it's below 6.5, he'll keep training and waiting for an opportunity, and Lucas says he can't just give up after coming this far, saying Young will do well on the written test and reminding him not to forget to study Portuguese. Young questions the need to study Portuguese, and Lucas explains that Portuguese tests are included in the individual evaluation. Young was surprised because he didn't know about that rule. Then Young's parents stood at the door of the dormitory, telling him to cheer up since they would keep in regular contact, but Young said he had already grown up. Young's father said it was better not to mention who he resembled. Then he asked if Uho-yeong could manage. Young agreed, saying he could. Then his father said he was his big boy. Young's mother hugged him and told him that if he ever faced a tough time, he didn't need to endure it alone and should just let them know, adding that she loved him. Young confirmed this and said he loved his mom too. From that day on, Young used his time wisely without wasting it, starting with studying Portuguese as he had to hurry since school would begin next month. One good thing was that his mother knew Spanish, so he could understand Portuguese to some extent, which helped a lot since the two languages are similar. Maria Choi had gathered foreign children for private lessons, which helped him improve his skills quickly. From morning until afternoon, he trained at the U9 Academy, and until he formally joined, he focused on building and mastering the basics until April. Communication was sometimes challenging, but since sports involved physical movements, he understood well. Then he would sleep at sunset, wanting to practice more but refraining for safety reasons. Young murmured that he wished he could drink a beer, thinking that he had gone back to being 10 years old with the memories of being 24, and then came to Brazil. He remembered Yongsu with a beer in hand. Young reflected that he needed to make friends quickly to make practicing easier, and since he was sociable, You should try to make some. So he left his room after that. He encountered Manika entering her room. Yang wondered if she slept in the room next to his. Manika greeted him, and Yang greeted her back. But he forgot what he was about to say while looking at Manika, thinking that he couldn't speak properly. Then he asked if she knew how to speak Korean. But she declined, saying he asked a strange question, while noting that there were no idols at that time and Manika asked him to wait. She then asked if Yang spoke English. Yang said he spoke very little, and Manika asked if he knew Russian, and the boy said no. So she offered to speak Spanish with him. Yang agreed and said his mother had lived in Spain. Inside Manika's room, Yang observed that her father was Brazilian, her mother was Russian-American, and her paternal grandmother was Spanish. Manika confirmed this and said her name was given by her paternal grandmother. Yang said it was impressive, and Manika felt flattered. The boy wondered how many languages she knew and asked her the same question. Manika said she could speak Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and English, but she wasn't fluent like a native in all of them. Yang used greed while complimenting her, saying she was truly a prodigy. He noticed she had talents in gymnastics, an innate sense for languages, bodily balance, and graceful flexibility, with 3 conditions for copying. Yang thought she also had a talent for languages, but since she was a housemate, it might take some time to acquire it. Then he asked if she practiced any sport, and Manika said she did rhythmic gymnastics. Yang asked if rhythmic gymnastics was more popular in Russia and Spain. Manika says she lived in Rio de Janeiro and started as a hobby, but since she had talent, she was now training there with the goal of going to Spain. Yang understood and said she seemed to have a talent for gymnastics, surprising Manika with this comment. Manika laughed and said Yang was really different from other boys because he was a fun person. Yang smiled and said they would be friends now, and Manika agreed. Time passed quickly, filled with studying hard, exercising, and putting effort into learning new talents, and a month flew by. Then, in February, the new school semester began. Yang enrolled in a school 10 minutes away by bus, and thanks to his sociable personality, he got along well with his classmates. Although there were some mean jokes about his ethnicity, the issues were resolved through soccer, as Brazil is the country of soccer. And since his skills were above average, he gained the interest of the local boys, thus making friends at school. At night, he had private lessons with Manika, which was the busiest and most passionate period of his life, but he persevered, thinking of his family and dreams. 2 months later, in April, Yang used greed to analyze his talents, and said that with this, he now had 11 in total, acquiring graceful flexibility and an innate sense for languages. Because even in a situation where his communication wasn't perfect, he managed to acquire 2 talents. Then he reflects that he should use this momentum to grow his existing talents, but is interrupted by Maria Choi and Monica, who call out to him. Yang asks what's going on, and Maria says she was worried about the results of the Portuguese certification exams, asking how it went. The boy says he was about to share that and tells them his result. He says he passed the basic Self-Braz certification. Monica and Maria celebrate his success with their arms linked with his. From that moment, Yang only wanted to secure a contract with the U15 team of São Paulo FC. On Thursday, April 3, 2003, Yang was in a room with a woman. That was the São Paulo FC youth team manager Bianca, who says Yang has worked hard all this time. Yang feels pressured, waiting for the result, but Bianca congratulates him. The boy is surprised by his results. Bianca explains that over the last 88 days he has given his best, and his GPA is 9.13. The score is slightly lower due to Portuguese, but it's still very high, because in 24 matches against other academies he scored 26 goals and provided 6 assists, earning a score of 9.33 out of 10, and he scored 9.35 in physical aptitude tests. And as mentioned before, the details vary based on GPA, but since he surpassed 9 points, he received the highest grade, placing first. Yang thanks her, feeling happy. Bianca says they will make an offer suitable to his skills. She acknowledges that it may be challenging due to the language barrier, but she appreciates how well he has adapted. Even Coach Carlos is satisfied, and Yang repeats to himself that he made it. The contract includes a weekly salary of 400 Rias, approximately 250,000 won. It's not as much as Cristiano Ronaldo received at 12, but still it's 1 million won per month, which is fantastic because it's more than he earned in his past life, and it also includes participation and goal bonuses. Bianca says that if he moves to a higher class, his salary will continue to increase, and Yang asks which class he'll join. The manager says he'll join the U13 team, and once his name is on the list, he will play weekly matches with payments made accordingly. Yang is surprised and asks if it's São Paulo FC's U13 team. It's the team he competed against as a top scorer in Shoot Dory. Early in the morning of April 4, Yang is running the ball on the street. He reflects that the U13 team is different from the academy because he is getting paid to play and can play for the team. Then he says he's nervous, but he stops the ball for a moment. Slapping his own face, he says he will keep doing his best because a real man wouldn't be stopped by such a small obstacle. And he shouts that he's a real man and will make it. But Monica calls out to him from her bedroom window, surprising Yang. Yang responds, and Monica says Maria is telling him to get ready to leave. Outside with Maria and Monica, Maria asks if they can go, and Yang agrees. Monica tells Yang to take it easy as he gets into the car. He thinks to himself that he should get excited. Moria asks if Yang is keeping in touch with his parents, and Yang says he is. She asks if he has any plans to visit them. Yang says they might not be able to come to Brazil because of work, but he plans to go back with the lead trophy instead. Maria laughs and says she'll cheer for him too. Yang thinks that this year he has 3 goals: to win the U13 Weekly League, move up to U15, and the third is to acquire all the talents of Brazil's promising stars. So he uses greed to analyze the talents he already has. He reflects that it's very rare for adults to have prodigious football talents because, in essence, it likely influences growth rates until adulthood. In this case, finding talents like a B+ prodigy or higher is challenging, but there should still be many talented kids in the U13 team. Yang steps into São Paulo's training center. Looking at the enormous area that is the facility, he notices it includes an internal study area and a mini field for futsal games, even an indoor field and a gym for daily practice. A woman approaches Yang and tells him that this is the training center and the largest in Brazil, impressing the boy. She is São Paulo's coach, Emily, nicknamed Mama, and she says it's great to see him excited. If he has any issues, he should let her know. Yang thanks her for that and follows Emily into a room. Emily says it's that way and asks him to follow her. They head to the entrance of the training field. Yang sees dozens of boys warming up, while stretching on the ground, and even using the ball while exercising. He reflects that even though training starts in 30 minutes, everyone is carefully warming up, but someone calls Yang. A boy asks if it's true that his GPA is 9.1. Yang says yes, and his recorded evaluation was 9.33, surprising the boys. While looking ahead, he wonders if some of the boys are being cautious because they play in the same position, and they're probably worried they might lose their spot to a newcomer. Yang reflects that the boys there played soccer as if their lives depended on it, and it's truly a battlefield. But he notices 2 people entering the field as well. Douglas asks why he's there, and Casemiro notices him too. The 2 boys are surprised by Yang's presence. Yang wonders why while activating greed, looking at the screen above them, and saying he's here to recover the talents he missed, silently asking them to give everything to him. Douglas and Casemiro gather with the other boys and say that Uho-yeong would now be a team member. Casemiro asks if this would improve their league ranking, and Douglas agrees, with the boy asking if Yeong is really that good. Douglas looks to the side thoughtfully and says he's good enough as he's surprisingly skilled at scoring goals. The players are shocked by this. Casemiro thinks that he is currently ranked 7th in the weekly league and that São Paulo has won the U13 league 7 times but has been struggling due to the lack of a striker. That's why Coach Carlos brought Ho-yeong in. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought such a young player into the U13 league. Casemiro asks if Douglas noticed that Yeong had grown, and Douglas says he thought the same. Then Carlos introduces the boys and says the training regime has been updated thanks to the new members joining the team. Yeong wonders if they'll focus on tactical work or teamwork, but then he runs alongside the other players, with each player running with the ball at their feet. Yeong notices that they are starting with the basics and there's nothing special about it. But even so, he feels that something is different, because they follow the structured yet non-imposing Brazilian educational philosophy, and while this doesn't mean he'll neglect it, he finds it interesting. Yeong competes with a boy for ball possession. A player asks for a pass. Yeong tries to pass while being marked, but he misses the ball. He reflects that he's finding it hard to keep up with the training because he has done many basic passing exercises, but it's difficult to pass the ball in specific situations. Some boys gossip about Yeong's mistake and wonder how many times he has failed. The coach explains that making a pass isn't just about kicking the ball, he needs to maintain body balance and perfect his posture. Because if he gets anxious or the space is tight, his balance will shift, making his passes unstable, so maintaining proper balance is crucial for stable passes. Yeong asks when the right moment is, and the coach says he wouldn't understand even if he explained. He needs to practice because it's about feeling it with his body. The boy says he understands and reflects that the answer is always the same and practice is the only way forward. Time passes and Carlos says that indeed, Ho-yeong has talent, but his foundation is very weak. The coach says his biggest problem is endurance, and he's not at the U13 level yet, asking if they shouldn't send him to the U11. Carlos says no, as they need to help Yeong grow, and while it may be difficult for him, it's their responsibility. Because he has only been playing soccer for 6 months and considering his talent, they should give him more time to develop because he will achieve great things if given a chance. On the soccer field, Carlos watches the game. Yeong reflects that the U13 league has many players, but for now, he should focus on one. Looking at Douglas Costa and meeting the conditions to train with 120 or more players and receive assists from Douglas during training, leading to scoring 20 goals. Yeong reflects that he acquired rapid racing legs and even improved them to a plus, but besides the master of balance, the only talent left is the B-level soccer prodigy. He wonders what would happen if he copied a talent he already had and says he will try. Yeong says it's the perfect day because they have team training 3 times a week, but someone arrives, calling him. It was Douglas Costas who said that spot was his and Yeong would either go down or play as a shadow striker. Yang refused, saying he wanted to score a goal. Douglas replied that Yang was slow and should stay behind while he scored the goals, and Yang could distract the defenders a little lower. Yang questioned what he meant by slow, and Douglas said he used to be much faster than him. The boy challenged the Brazilian to a race. Douglas then shared a saying from his mother about people knowing their limits. Yang said he would show him exactly what that meant. Then a boy said that when he gave the signal, they would run. Both boys agreed to the race. They took off as soon as the signal was given. Yang stayed just slightly behind Douglas. Douglas won by a small margin, and the other boys declared him the winner. One player remarked that it was incredible since the race was so close, and Douglas wondered how Yang had gotten so much faster since they were on the same level. Because if their physical stats were the same, Yang might have won. Douglas hit the ground in frustration, but he said Yang would go ahead because he would now be the substitute. Yang replied that he should have said so earlier and just passed the ball, as Yang would score all the goals for him. Douglas made a pass to Yang, who was unmarked. Yang then scored a perfect goal, receiving another pass from Douglas Costas and easily scoring another goal. 3 weeks later, the conditions were met, and Yang could copy one of Douglas Costas' talents. Yang reflected that he had fulfilled both conditions but was still nervous. He chose to copy the B+ level football prodigy talent. Greed began to modify as some lights appeared. It showed that the talent had now become a B+2 level prodigy. Greed warned him that it would take 7 days to fully acquire the talent, and during his period he couldn't copy another. Yang noted that the enhancement had been successful, and he said he now needed to work hard and practice diligently. Yang made a long pass to a player. The São Paulo players remarked that Yang had improved significantly and seemed like a completely different person. Yang reflected that while it usually takes a person a month to learn something, the B+ level football prodigy talent helped him understand it in just 2 weeks, and he now felt the difference. Yang ran, dribbling through cones with the ball at his feet. A coach explained that dribbling wasn't just about moving your feet, your entire body should move as one with the ball to maintain your center of gravity. Yang agreed with the instructions, although he couldn't immediately grasp his coach's advice. Through direct training, he understood its meaning through experience. Yang called out to Casemiro, who was facing away, and said it was time for shooting practice, and that they'd play a round of the crown game. The crown game was a mini-game where the person holding the ball within a set time became the king, and the loser had to fulfill the king's request. Casemiro asked why they suddenly wanted to play that, and Yang said it was because he was the best defender on the team. The boy felt flattered by the compliment and said he couldn't refuse, so he would do it. Yang reflected that he said that, but in truth, in addition to training, this was also a chance to gain Casemiro's talent. Yang and Casemiro stood behind the line, and Yang said he would start. The coach's timer began. Yang completely lost the ball to Casemiro. He reflected that it was difficult since he lost possession of the ball in just 3 minutes. It was no surprise, though, since Casemiro was a promising player representing the U13 league and was not only experienced but a genius, making it impossible for Yang to keep up. Yang then said that to close the gap, he would run until his feet were on fire. He stood up to start running. Yang spent the rest of his days training harder than anyone else to make up for his lack of training. About a month later, the timer reached 5 minutes. Yang celebrated because he had finally held on for 5 minutes. He reflected that it was thanks to mastering the basics and using his flashy footwork. He chose the good ball-blocking talent, thus gaining another valuable skill. Reflecting that every time he acquired a talent, he felt like he was climbing the stairs to becoming a professional player, and the feeling was rewarding. Carlos was watching Yang's training. He reflected that Yang was slowly preparing for the league games, and that his growth trajectory was impressive because, without a doubt, he was one of the best in the U13 league, and of his skills shown in real matches. Carlos says he believes it's possible because Yang is the type of player who stands out in real game situations. He then explains that they will put him in the next match against Palmeiras, prompting the assistant coach to ask if it isn't too important a game. Carlos says that's exactly why he wants Yang there. On August 1st, during the 23rd round of the U13 Weekly League, Carlos explains that their opponent is Palmeiras, currently 3rd in the league, and it's a crucial match for their team, which is in 4th place. Among them, the key player and ace is the U13 defensive wall, Pavia, known for his precise tackles and excellent ball distribution. He warns Yang to create space through coordinated plays with Douglas, while applying pressure up front, and Yang agrees. Yang reflects that this is his debut match and wonders how long he has waited for this moment, as it will be the first officially recorded game of his career and the beginning of his journey. He says he has finally become a football player now. He remembers his childhood when he watched TV. Feeling excited as he watched Korea's game, a smile spreads across Yang's face. A player extends his hand to Yang. It's Pavia, who wishes him a good game. Yang uses greed and realizes that this is Pavia, the ace, with conditions to win the game and score 2 goals to copy his talent. He sees that Pavia has motor-like quick legs, razor-sharp ball distribution, and precise tackling. Yang thinks that perhaps training with Douglas and Casemiro has raised his standards, because playing alongside them could make a significant impact in the U13 league, and although he lacks physicality and experience, he has plenty of talent. Thus, the match between Palmeiras and São Paulo SC begins. The The game unfolds in midfield. Yang runs with the ball at his feet while Pavia follows him. Carlos wonders if he's the same boy as before, because he no longer sees the reckless and disorganized way of running like in the past. Yang's dribbling and passing exceed expectations, and his defensive skills have improved so much that he seems to dominate the field, even leaving Pavia the defensive wall behind. Carlos says his level has risen significantly. It's 15 minutes into the first half. Yang reflects that the warm-up is over. Then he sees Douglas free alongside player number 7. Douglas looks at Yang with calmness, and Yang does the same with his teammate. They move around each other. Yang makes a heel pass to Douglas, who grabs the ball and shoots forward. Pavia notices they switch positions, and the players on the bench say the defense has collapsed. Palmera's team calls to block Douglas, but Yang just runs, drawing attention in the middle of them. Douglas makes a heel pass back to Yang, who controls the ball with his foot, facing the goal directly. Yang glances to the side, then prepares for a shot, and strikes the ball to send it far. Yang watches as the ball heads toward the goal, shooting it perfectly into the angle where the goalkeeper cannot reach it. It's been 7 months since Yang arrived in Brazil, and all his effort culminates in a single shot. He runs, thinking that hard work never disappoints, and feels so happy he doesn't even want to celebrate. Carlos observes that the first half is nearing its end. Yang's movements have become more stable, and his passing is appropriate with an extremely consistent rhythm. He notices that by reducing his energy consumption and marking effectively, Yang is wearing down Pavia's stamina. Yang then passes to Douglas. Pavia curses when this happens, reflecting that as soon as the marking is loosened, Yang destabilizes their defensive formation. Somehow, he needs to catch up to him. But Pavia is surprised by this, noticing they're making another switch play. Yang smiles as he sees this. Then he kicks the ball forward, passing to Casemiro, who is advanced. Pavia realizes he focused too much on the switch. Casemiro easily receives the pass. Then Yang moves into the penalty area, asking for the ball. Casemiro makes a perfect pass to him, which Yang controls with the instep of his foot. That first touch above the level he acquired thanks to the delicate ball touch talent. Then he makes a shot toward the goal, but the goalkeeper saves it. The crowd complains about this, and the substitutes say it was a wasted opportunity. Yang runs, grumbling about the lack of precision and power in his left foot. But still, he knows he can make it because with his current skills, he can create such opportunities at any moment as long as he does as he practiced. Because with his ball control, passing, and dribbling skills, he can execute a stable game in any situation. Then he wonders what kind of player he will become. Until now, his goal was to be a best football player in the world, but he starts to believe he can truly become a high-level football player. He moves forward with a smile, saying it's really fun to play football. The first half ends with the game at 1-0. In Palmera's meeting room, the coach asks if Pavia is unable to focus and if it's really so hard to handle someone much smaller than him. Pavia says they keep switching positions, and the coach asks how many times he's told him to tighten the defensive zone and play defense during the switch. The coach says it's not just Pavia's fault. The team needs to adapt to the unconventional plays of their opponents and not forget what they learned in training. He reflects that they managed to bring the team to 3rd place in the league with difficulty but cannot let São Paulo SC win. In São Paulo's meeting room, Carlos explains that even with a 1-0 lead, they can't just focus on defense. They need to wait for the opposing defense to tire before attacking. He tells Yang to conserve his energy and use everything he practiced to the fullest in the second half, saying he can give it his all. Yang agrees with his coach. At the start of the second half, Carlos notices something different about the game, realizing that the opposing team has changed their strategy and wonders if they're planning to stop the positional switches with a defensive zone. Then he smiles as he watches the game. Yang reflects that this is the defensive technique his coach mentioned, a tactic where each player defends a designated area, organizing the defense. He then turns and says that in this case, he sees his team exchanging passes as they advance through midfield. Then he looks to the side through the marking, noticing that the area behind Casemiro is open. He bursts forward explosively, saying this is the moment, as Casemiro makes a pass to him. Yang controls the ball with his right foot, then passes the ball to Douglas. Douglas pushes the ball forward as Yang runs toward it. Yang runs with the ball toward the goal, praising Douglas' pass. He spots an opening where Douglas is inside the penalty box. He dribbles past 2 defenders, and notes that even while attacking, he trained various passes for this moment. He makes the pass to Douglas. Douglas receives it and praises Yang, saying it was a good pass. He shoots at the goal, leaving the goalkeeper unable to stop it. Yang celebrates with Douglas. The final score is 2-0 with a victory for São Paulo. The team greets each other with hugs. Yang can now choose a talent and selects precise passing, ranked C. He reflects that he also gained Pavia's talent, and now he has an idea of how to use his talents. As his football skills grow and improve, he can utilize them more effectively as well. He says he has a long journey ahead and will work even harder. Casemiro thanks him for his effort, and Carlos tells him he did a great job. Carlos pats Yang on the head. Yang looks at his coach, wondering why. Carlos says he did a good job. Yang smiles and says he'll do even better next time. He then returns to the accommodation and announces that he's back. Maria says he's back and comments on the good smell, noticing that Yang smells nice. Yang explains that he bought some snacks thinking they could eat together. Maria asks why he would suddenly do that, but then notices that Yang had won the game and says she knew he could do it. Maria says he didn't need to buy those snacks, but Yang says it's fine because she helped him with Portuguese and she thanks him. Yang had earned an extra 60 Rias for an appearance fee and 40 Rias as a gold bonus. He goes upstairs while Maria asks if he isn't going to eat, but he says she can eat first because he has something to do quickly. He dials the house's landline and calls his parents. His father answers the phone and asks if it's him, asking what happened. Yang says he won today's game, surprising his father and mother. They celebrate while Yang reflects that sharing good news with his family is the best thing to do, because seeing his family happy gives him strength. After the game, São Paulo went on a winning streak and secured second place in September. Since his debut, Yang led the team to victory in a total of 8 games, scoring 13 goals and providing 3 assists, becoming a crucial member of the team. Thanks to his contributions, São Paulo reached the playoffs and was now waiting for the matches, just 2 steps away from lifting the trophy. He watches a soccer game with Monica. Christian Ziege scores a goal. Yang says that Ziege is on another level and reflects that this is Ziege after all. Christian had been his idol up until now. He wanted to meet him, even if just for one day. So he gets up from the couch. Monica asks where Yang is going. Yang tells her the answer is pretty obvious, heading to São Paulo's training field. While practicing with the ball, running from one side to the other, Emily watches the boy working hard and giving it his all. And as he takes a break, she approaches, telling him he did a great job. Emily asks if he isn't overexerting himself since he could rest for 3 days before the playoffs and barely half a day has passed since the last game. Yang says he has a lot of energy and asks when he'll get another chance to use the training center, so he must work hard while he can. Even before his regression, Yang practiced soccer during his part-time job's days off because he loved the sport. Emily says it's truly unusual since he's the only one who does that. Yang agrees and asks if she'd like to eat something, surprising the coach. The boy takes out some roasted chestnuts, saying he brought them for lunch. He eats them frequently because they're his favorite food, and Emily thanks him, saying he's really kind. Then Yang runs off, saying he's leaving, and Emily tells him to work hard. Emily smiles as she eats the chestnuts given by the boy, but she notices someone approaching. It's the director of São Paulo's club. He waves at Emily. Emily asks why he's there, and the director says he stopped by the main building on his way to the office and asks what she's eating. She says she got them from a boy named Yang from the U13 team and asks if he'd like some, but the director jokes, saying she's quite popular. He asks if it isn't the U13 team's rest period, and Emily confirms but says Yang is a bit unusual. The director says he's heard his name in the reports, and Emily says he probably has because Yang is really good. The director says he'll have to keep an eye on him if he participates in the championship. Yang reflects that it's only been 2 months since he joined the league. With a solid foundation, it feels like his skills are improving quickly, and beyond that, he found some talents in the last 8 games that enhance his abilities. Now possessing the skillful tricks at C+2 and other skills. He reflects that for his 14th talent, he acquired a sharp 2-in-1 pass. Both the skillful tricks and rhythmic flexibility are traits many Brazilians have, and both have become C+2. Thanks to this, there's been a change in his talent. He also discovered this time that he couldn't simply accumulate C+ levels to guarantee a level up, so if he moved from C+2 to C+3, it couldn't be a single C+. It seems Yang needs to copy another level C talent to understand this, but he decides to focus on the urgent task, placing the soccer ball on the ground. Yang says he's going to score 30 mid-range goals, recalling the conditions of Chobun Kun's skills, and noticing that to acquire Chobun's L-level talent later, he would need to take many long-distance shots beyond 30 meters. So he places his foot on the ball and says he can achieve it only through effort. In recent months, aside from the fundamentals, he has focused on free kick training and mid-range shooting practice. It's the same on this day as he prepares to shoot toward the goal. Yang takes a very strong shot, kicking another ball with his foot, and scoring another goal during his training. Yang repeats the same action. 2 hours later, the boy is panting from kicking the ball so much. Greed appears in front of him, because his heavy mid-range shot talent had evolved, and he realizes that intensive training has shown results. If he takes advantage of the preseason after October, he could raise his talents to even higher levels, but until then, he'll focus on the playoffs. On September 27th, a semifinal match between the 3rd place in the league and the 4th Palmeiras took place. Caparian, after enduring Palmeiras' fierce attacks, won 1-0. With their impenetrable defense, São Paulo FC faces a crisis in the upcoming match. On the football field where the match was about to take place, Douglas and Yang stood side by side preparing themselves. In the match between São Paulo FC and Caparian, the players got ready. Yang ran with the ball alongside Douglas. The Parian players noticed their fast advance. They ordered their team to block, push forward on the line, and defend the back area. This led to 5 defenders being positioned to stop Yang and Douglas. Carlos reflected that they were trying to prevent the ball from reaching Yang by placing 5 midfielders in the center and applying pressure. Even if they broke through, they would retreat to defend. They were taking defense very seriously, fearing Yang's dribbling skills. With a smile, Carlos noticed that their formation was tighter than before. He thought they had a plan while Yang surged forward faster than Douglas. Douglas looked at Yang to see what he would do. Yang made the same observation about Douglas. Douglas then made a lateral pass to their teammate. Yang controlled the ball with the tip of his foot. He stood face to face with an opposing defender. Using his talent for unique footwork, ranked C+2, he began to move with the ball, but stopped at midway, changing direction and passing by the defender's side. The defender looked back and pressed. He called for backup and told his teammates to stay close as Yang sprinted explosively. The defenders said this was expected and that if they blocked his path, they gained the advantage. But Yang noticed they overlooked the technical difference between them. Even knowing what Yang would do, they couldn't stop him, because their bodies couldn't react quickly enough. Yang nutmegged one of the defenders, then ran around him to retrieve the ball. The defender wondered how he could block someone as wild as Yang, but Yang faced the goal and took a mid-range shot. The commentators praised São Paulo for securing a spot in the championship after Yang's goal. It had been multiple goals by Yang in the second half that proved decisive, confirming São Paulo's participation in the final. In São Paulo's locker room, Carlos felt relieved, but he reminded himself not to get too excited, as the opponent in the final was Corinthians. The last step they needed to take for victory, given Corinthians was a formidable team, especially since if they couldn't stop a boy with genius talent, they would have no chance of winning. The next day, at São Paulo's training ground, Carlos gathered the boys. He told them they needed to train from now on to stop Corinthians' Pato. Yang reflected that it was Alexander Pato, a genius who would later be called the second Pele, and anyone who didn't know his name didn't know Brazil's future, as he would lead AC Milan and was associated with the saying, "If Argentina has Messi, Brazil has Pato." He was an exceptional genius and only 3 years older than Yang, so Yang felt he could handle him. Football was a team game, not a solo fight. Carlos explained that Alexander Pato had recently joined Corinthians and already played 14 matches, scoring 18 goals. He was the main candidate for the championship's golden ball. However, their team chemistry might still be weak since he had joined not long ago. With good training, they could beat Corinthians. Winning in football meant being the best overall team, and the team that played well would always win. They just needed to become a winning team to achieve victory. The boys were inspired by their coach's speech, looking at him with admiration. Carlos said they would focus on exploiting their weaknesses, but stopping Pato wouldn't be easy, so they would prepare for the match as best as possible, approaching it with confidence, and the boys agreed with their coach. Carlos instructed them to start positional training in 10 minutes but warm up first. With another coach, Carlos discussed Corinthians' 4-3-2-1 formation and asked how to stop Pato. The other coach suggested countering the 4-1-4-1, but they lacked resources. Their defense was solid, but the problem lay in their attack, as Corinthians would likely press Yang hard. Carlos said he had an idea for that. At São Paulo's training field, in the discussion room, Carlos extended his hand, saying they would be the winning team that day. Douglas extended his hand, followed by the other players. Yang and Casemiro joined in. Together, they declared they would bring the King's Majesty to the field. Carlos called Yang aside. He told him that the field was the stage where Yang could showcase all his training, urging him to give it his all. Yang agreed with his coach, determined to do his best. Facing the Corinthians team, Yang shakes hands with a Corinthians player. He uses greed while thinking about taking a look at Pato's talent, winking as he observes him. Pato possessed the football genius talent at level A, racing legs at level A, precise ball touch, individual skills, and a decent goal-scoring ability. Yang reflects that in the future, Pato would be hailed as the second Pele, and now they had finally met. He looks again at Alexander Pato's talents, then sees that the conditions to copy them are to win the final, be selected as the regional golden ball, and score 2 goals. He marvels, thinking that Pato isn't just a prodigy but a true football genius, and he believes that if he copies these skills, he could become a genius too. Yang runs to the midfield, stopping right in his position. Alexander Pato and the Corinthians players are surprised. Even the Corinthians coach questions what's going on. This was the strategy to stop the genius. The players wonder why Yang is there, and the coach asks why he's playing in midfield, while the substitute says he doesn't know. Carlos reflects that this was precisely why they had been conducting secret special training, recalling the moment Yang received the news. Yang asks if Carlos wants him to take over the midfield position. Carlos encourages him, saying it's simple and there's no need to be afraid, while Yang reflects that his coach must have a reason for this. Then Carlos asks him to follow him to the field, and Yang questions the training, because this was special training. Yang notices that Douglas and Casemiro are there and wonders if they'll also participate. Carlos explains that Yang needs to pass the ball he receives from Casemiro to Douglas and asks what the best way would be if Douglas is far away. Yang says it would be to connect the ball through the midfield laterally for a quick build-up, or to have the winger drop back to receive it. Carlos agrees and says that from now on, Yang will focus on distributing the ball based on key patterns. And for several days after that, the distribution training continued. Coach Carlos instructed them to practice various ball distribution patterns until the connections became completely natural. Yang focused on distributing the ball to the point where he reduced his basic skills training and his talent improved drastically day by day. Thus, his precise ball distribution talent rose to level C+. Carlos directs the team to join team training and proceed with defensive movements while Yang observes greed. The intensive training continued for the remaining 3 days. Carlos instructs them to start over again from the beginning to ingrain it into their minds and bodies so they can react to any situation. The players agree, and while complaints could have piled up, they focus silently, determined to finish the season spectacularly. Carlos on the bench reflects that the key to this strategy lies in the register role, connecting passes between attack and defense, and that role would be taken on by Uho-yeong. Pato's speed was the fastest in the league, and São Paulo knew they had no way to stop it, but they had Uho-yeong on their team. In other words, this strategy relied on Uho-yeong's performance to determine the game's outcome. The Corinthians coach says it's truly difficult. It's Fabio Carril who reflects that he thought Yang would be a striker, so he planned strategies and conducted training accordingly, but Yang ended up as a midfielder. He thinks that changing positions is a smart tactic for versatile players who adapt perfectly, and he was caught off guard because given the situation, he had no choice but to hand the initiative to São Paulo FC. The referee blows the whistle, signaling the start of the game. The championship final between Corinthians and São Paulo begins. Corinthians starts the game with ball possession, making a pass in the midfield. One of the players reflects that he won't be able to pass. He looks forward, trying to find an opportunity, but sees that there's very little space. Still, he passes the ball, thinking that since it's come to this, it's time for a lob pass, and his teammate makes one. The boy runs toward the cross, and the ball lands in front of him, but 2 São Paulo defenders advance as well. The player manages to dribble past both of them, calling for Pato to receive his pass. Pato pays attention to his teammate's play, and the number 2 makes a quick pass. Alexander Pato controls the ball with his foot, looking ahead, ready to advance. But instead, he kicks a shot from there, surprising Casemiro. Still, Pato moves forward alongside his shot, recovering the ball and escaping the marking. São Paulo's players comment that Pato is incredibly fast, almost like a rocket, but Casemiro tells them to follow him. However, none of São Paulo's defenders can keep up with him. The goalkeeper wonders how this could have happened. Now it's just him and Pato ready for a one-on-one after executing his signature dribble and burst move. The goalkeeper leaves his legs open. Pato notices this as he looks ahead. He shoots the ball through the gap, scoring a goal, the first one for Corinthians. Corinthians players celebrate among themselves, while São Paulo's players reflect on how they had trained tirelessly to stop Pato, yet within just 5 minutes, they had conceded a goal. Additionally, they think that with Pato's specialty in dribbling and bursts of speed, they had little chance to stop him. Yang looks down as he sweats, but he sighs deeply, saying it's okay, because they only need to score 1 goal, and if they don't concede any more, it will be enough. In the first half, during the next 30 minutes, they focus on preventing any additional goals. Douglas is being tightly marked by number 7. While a São Paulo player retrieves the ball, Yang reflects that they haven't found any openings, because their defense is too weak for him to play as a forward, and Casemiro can't stop Pato, meaning that if Yang played forward, it would turn into a stamina battle. After all, Pato's attacks are solid and sharp. That's what makes him Pato. Yang's only option is to cover as much as possible and look for an opportunity through smooth ball distribution. He warns Casemiro that they're coming. Casemiro looks back, preparing himself, and Yang tells him to stay focused. The first half ends. The players head to their locker room as Douglas sighs. He thinks that thanks to Yang, they were slowly regaining their rhythm, and the first half ended 1-0. But Carlos is probably going to scold them. In São Paulo's locker room, Carlos asks if everyone is present. The boys confirm they are. Carlos continues his sentence, saying they all played very well. The boys initially don't react, but they are stunned by their coach's reaction. Completely surprised by his words, Carlos explains that in the past, they conceded a hat trick to Pato and lost. He asks them to reflect on today, because they are ahead in terms of completed passes and midfield possession, which means they are in control. The proof is that their ball distribution training is working. Casemiro says they couldn't stop Pato, even after all their training. Carlos replies that even Corinthians must have trained with everything they had to win the championship trophy. Anyone can work hard, but only those who show everything they train for can win. So the boys shouldn't dwell on the goal they conceded. Instead, they should seize the moment and show everything they've got. Carlos looks at Yang among the boys and calls him out for smiling, asking if something funny was going on, but Yang denies it, leading Carlos to ask why he's smiling. Yang says it's because he's going to enjoy playing football and only needs to show how much he has trained up to now. Back in the game in the second half, Corinthians holds possession in midfield, making passes. Yang calls out to Casemiro, who asks what's going on. Yang tells him to get excited because he will support him as much as possible. Casemiro agrees with his teammate. São Paulo's number 2 player stares at Pato, thinking it's useless, because they will face Pato's signature moves again. He makes a pass while calling Pato's attention. However, Yang intercepts the ball, surprising São Paulo's number 2, who is caught off guard. Yang reflects that the same tactic won't work twice. Pato looks back surprised, but he sees the ball being played forward, and Yang sprinting to recover it, passing 2 of Corinthians' defenders. Yang says he has a feeling they can win. Pato reflects that since the second half began, Yang's movements have changed. Realizing that Yang predicted Teddy's timing and stole the ball, he calls out to Teddy, thinking their plan won't work as intended. The commentators note that Corinthians has switched from a single forward to 2 attackers. Pato glances to the side. Seeing Yang running with the ball, Pato smiles and starts sprinting, telling Yang to get out of his way. Surprising São Paulo's number 7. Yang gets angry and insults Pato. Carlos reflects that Corinthians' attack has changed and they have no choice but to adjust their strategy as well. Thus, Pato is surprised along with Teddy, because they relinquish ball possession in exchange for relieving midfield pressure to conserve energy, betting entirely on a counterattack. Pato calls for the ball from the number 5 while advancing, controlling it with his foot and executing a nutmeg dribble on the defender. Pato moves toward the goal, saying he had to catch up to them. Casemiro attempts a sliding tackle to take the ball from Pato, but Pato just keeps running, ending up face-to-face with the goal. Pato says he was right. He had succeeded. Pato was about to shoot on goal, but he is interrupted by a sliding tackle, which takes the ball from his foot performed by Yang. Pato wonders what happened and notices Yang getting up. Pato wonders why Yang was following him now, but Yang tells his team to run, because no matter how good the pass was, the result would be decided by the goal, and São Paulo FC made their final effort to score a goal. Thus, all players joined the attack. Yang dribbles past 2 São Paulo defenders while carrying the ball, and looks ahead, analyzing carefully, thinking the chances of being blocked were high, wondering if they should have Douglas at the forefront in this case, but realizes it wouldn't work because 2 defenders were marking him. Yang thinks that in this situation, he would have passed the ball to the side and made a linking play, but at this moment, that wouldn't work. A defender stands in front of him saying Yang wouldn't get past. However, Yang shoots through his legs. The Corinthians player notices it was the same move Pato used in front of the goal and shouts that the way ahead is open. Yang wonders if it's 20 meters to the goal, but he is confident because he practiced a lot on the training field, thus using a solid mid-range shot with a C+ level, saying the movement was exactly 6 steps, preparing the ball on the ground and kicking it with all his strength, making a shot while pouring all his feelings into the tip of his foot. Yang scored the equalizer. Alexander Pato is impressed by this, and the São Paulo players celebrate the equalizer. The ball keeps rolling across the field. Pato notices they were running out of time and he was going to end the game at that moment. Alexander managed to infiltrate the defense, and this was the golden opportunity, but he is hit in the back by Casemiro, thus knocking the boy down with his strength, and Casemiro receives a red card for this action, expelling the São Paulo player, while Pato notices he came to take the red card and defend. Noticing that São Paulo was determined to score at all costs, so was Corinthians, then intercepting a ball from Yang with a sliding tackle while thinking he would never lose, preventing several plays from Yang. It was the 33rd minute of the second half. Yang reflects that there's no turning back because if they fail now, the game will be over. Then he passes to a player while telling him to pass it back, thus running ahead of him where the player passes it back. Yang receives the ball and runs down the field, seeing Douglas Costas in the penalty area, but he chooses to shoot the ball, launching it toward the goal. However, the ball hits the crossbar and is about to bounce back. Yang complains about it, denying this fact, but Carlos shouts that it wasn't over yet, and Douglas is in front of the goal, hitting the ball with a volley, sending it into the net and scoring. Thus, São Paulo FC scored the tie-breaking goal. After an extremely fierce match, São Paulo FC emerges victorious and the players meet up, celebrating together with joy and smiling as they joke with each other. Carlos and Casemiro watch this together from the bench, and São Paulo FC lifts the trophy, with Douglas raising it as high as possible. Yang reflects that he had won the championship, and wonders who would have imagined that an Asian boy studying abroad would achieve such a feat, remembering when he competed with Douglas, when he played against Fabia, dribbling past 2 defenders from the team, and finally, when he scored the equalizing goal. Then Yang smiles, saying he should enjoy the moment raising the trophy. In a building in downtown São Paulo, inside the São Paulo Youth Football Federation, several executives are deciding on the under-13 Ballon d'Or and the top scorer selection, wondering if the Ballon d'Or would go to Uho-yeong. One of the executives says that although he's Asian, he thinks the trophy could help him grow even more, serving as motivation for local players. Another man comments that it had been an amazing year, and the person next to him agrees, mentioning that an Asian player won the championship and that a boy born in 1992 scored 40 goals. An executive asks if they're talking about Neymar, who was signed by Santos FC, and says he's excited for the First Division League next year. The following day, during the award ceremony, Alexander Pato from Corinthians is named the top scorer and Uho-yeong from São Paulo is awarded the best forward. The presenter announces that the winner of this year's Golden Ball is Uho-yeong. He hands Yeong the Golden Ball and congratulates him. Yeong thanks the man for the honor. He reflects that along with the trophy, he received about 3 million won, but his true reward was Pato's talent. He chose to copy Pato's football genius, ranked A. Thus, Yeong became a football genius. Yeong thanks Pato for the meal he provided, At the accommodation in Vitoria, Yang reflects that acquiring the football genius talent was crucial for his growth. He had been worried that upgrading Prodigy to B+2 would lose its purpose, but it didn't matter. Because Pato's football genius absorbed the football Prodigy talent and advanced from A to A. The boy marvels at how incredible that is. Since Pato's talent was already high at A, absorbing the B+2 level likely elevated it to A. Yang reflects that his efforts weren't in vain. However, Grebe warns him that it will take 30 days to fully absorb the talent, and he won't be able to acquire others during this period. Yang thinks it's a long time, but in about 30 days, he'll become the greatest rookie in Asian history, because his professional debut is approaching. The world record for the youngest player belongs to an Argentine Ro who debuted in 2016. But Yang plans to break that record. He says he needs to meet at least the minimum conditions since the preseason will be a turning point. Standing up, he declares that it will be a busier preseason than the regular season. On Saturday, November 8, 2003, Yang arrives at the airport saying it's been a long time since he's been to Korea. He reflects that the club gave him a free plane ticket because he contributed to the team's victory and played exceptionally well. He glances to the side and notices something, seeing his parents and his brother calling out to him, waiting for him with smiles on their faces. Young's father hugs him, asking when he grew up so much, while Young teases that his dad is crying. Ho-yeong approaches, calling for his brother, and Young remarks that he's grown since the last time they met. Hugging his brother, Young says he'll sleep with him, and promises that when Ho-lo starts elementary school, Young will be playing for a famous team, and everyone will be amazed to have a famous brother. Young's mother calls out to him, saying it must have been hard, but he worked through it all. Young just stares at her, speechless, then smiles at his mother while holding his brother. Young eats with chopsticks, saying it's the best day ever, because he's eating a full plate of his mother's cooking, which he had missed, and he recuperates at home, receiving an interview request at the airport as soon as he arrived. Through it all, the number of people in his fan club surpassed 20,000, but he notices something odd in the fan club chat, reading that he's being promoted and wondering who they're talking about as it's the first time he's hearing about this promotion. However, it seems that Power Type, his hater, has turned into a genuine fan. But Young's thoughts are interrupted by his parents. Startled, Young hears his father ask if he has a moment, wanting to know what's in his bag since it's so heavy. Young explains that it's the things he received, the trophy, the prize, and something from the bottom of his bag, showing a travel permit, performance bonuses, and an incentive bonus, totaling 5 million won, and says it's his homecoming gift, surprising his father and mother, who embrace Young, thanking him. Young's father says he's proud, and his mother adds that she's more grateful for his thoughtfulness than the money. The next day, Young's mother knocks on his bedroom door while he's sleeping. Young asks to sleep for just 5 more minutes, but she asks if he's already talked to Coach Chebum-kun. Young quickly gets up, realizing he had completely forgotten about it. From the championship win to being with his family, he hadn't yet called Coach Chebum-kun, who told Young that he had something important to say and that Young should call him when he got home. Young goes to a local shop in his city. Chebum-kun welcomes him and says he worked hard in the U13, and Young thanks him. The coach tells him to eat as much as he wants and asks if he has any plans. Young agrees, and Chebum-kun says he already informed his father, because he wants to send him on the Dream Tree expedition. Young asks what that is. Chebum-kun explains that Dream FC organizes an overseas expedition for promising players under 13, forming groups to participate in youth tournaments. The boy asks if it's okay for him to suddenly join the group, but Chebum-kun asks what he's talking about, explaining that the coach already reserved a spot for him, and Young thanks him, saying that he really wants to participate, thinking it's good there isn't much happening during the off-season. Then he asks if they'll just be playing games, and Chebum-kun explains that he'll be playing, training, and watching matches with promising players. Young is surprised, reflecting that he'll meet incredible young players, and asks who they'll be playing against. Chebum-kun asks if Young is curious. Young says yes, eagerly waiting for his coach to respond, because the expedition will take place in Germany, a country with a special connection to Chebum-kun and a paradise for young talents. On December 18 at the airport, the Dream Tree expedition sets off. Over the course of 30 days, they will play 2 friendlies before participating in youth tournaments across 4 continents. A total of 14 players are part of the expedition, and Young is the only one who has played abroad, making him the target of many questions from reporters on the plane. But 11 hours later, they arrive at Frankfurt Airport in Germany, heading to the Frankfurt Hotel, which has a training center. Young reflects that it's cold but recognizes it as a football powerhouse, seeing the academies and saying it's incredible, wondering if Germany is going to produce another football monster. He considers going to England or Spain after Brazil, but realizes Germany isn't a bad choice either, trying to recall famous German players, thinking about names like Lahm, Neuer, Cruz, Müller, Sané, Götze, Kimmich, Hummels, and Boding, and reflecting it would be amazing to meet at least one of them. But he's hit on the head by a ball. Someone tells him to focus. Young turns around and is impressed. It's Cheddu Rim, and Young sees a chance to acquire a talent. Young calls out to Cheddu Rim, who recognizes him. But Young notices something different about him. In just 1 year, Choi-do-rim looks older, but Young is sure Choi-do-rim was transferred to a prestigious Bundesliga team where it must be difficult to survive. Choi-do-rim places a hand on the boy's head and says he's really grown to the point where he's almost unrecognizable. Young says it's because he went to Brazil, and Choi-do-rim praises him, asking if he really went to Brazil, which is incredible. Young says it's thanks to Choi-do-rim's training, reflecting that acquiring that talent allowed him to join São Paulo FC and lift the championship trophy. So Do-rim is someone he truly needs to thank. Do-rim says it's nothing, but Young looks at him with a smile, checking his talents and conditions for copying. Young notices some of his talents have improved since last time, and he's gained another talent, with the conditions now easier than before. Young wonders why he doesn't have any talents himself, questioning if it's because he's only been practicing the basics. But it's fine as long as he can acquire talents from others, and he thinks it'll be helpful in the next season. So he decides to try to acquire the talent, and he'll enjoy a good meal this time with Do-rim. He thanks Do-rim, calling him an older brother, thinking he'll acquire the talent properly, while Do-rim simply smiles at the boy. Young reflects that he's lucky to have met him, and the match will take place in 4 days, so no matter what happens, he must win. For the next 4 days, Young faithfully observes the training of Frankfurt LRTU 13, participates in practice himself, and gets to know the team members. One day, someone taps Young on the shoulder. It's Hyun-jun, who says it's been a while since they last saw each other. Hyun-jun says it's no joke that Young is being treated like a hero in Brazil, praising his height and skills, and Young simply thanks him. Young reflects that it's all thanks to Hyun-jun's talent, but says he's very happy to play with him again, and says there's something that made him curious, asking if Hyun-jun knew a boy named Yoon Jung-ho. Hyun-jun, however, says he doesn't know who that is. Young questions if that's really true and reflects on how they didn't know each other. Because in 2003, Yoon Jung-ho should have won the Chobum-kun Football Award, so Young realizes the future has changed due to his actions. And in the future, even more things will change because of him in football. On the day of the much-anticipated match against Frankfurt U13, Young is holding the ball on the field and says the prey has already been spotted. He sees Binyo Muharapa, born in 1991, a typical forward over 1.80 meters tall. With football prodigy talent at C+3, decent heading at C+, and very fast legs at C+2, requiring him to play alongside Young for an hour and score a goal. Young reflects that it's been a while since he's seen talent like this and thinks that mastering heading would give him an aerial advantage. So he decides to win decisively. On the bench, Choi-do-rim is impressed. He says that Young has improved so much that he's unrecognizable, and Chobum-kun remarks that this is how it was when he was young. That was the highest praise Chobum-kun could give, and Young is running, dribbling the players with the ball. His movements are as swift as a leopard's, and his sharp claws are like a knife. Young prepares the ball with his foot, shooting toward the goal, being a true tiger among men, scoring a goal against Frankfurt U13. The Korean team celebrates, saying they scored a goal, and the Brazilian training really paid off, because with the second condition fulfilled, his talent has grown. Young jumps off the ground, leaping and celebrating, imitating Cristiano Ronaldo, and thus the real game begins. The players on the bench celebrate Young's outstanding performance, while Choi-do-rim is amazed by the boy, and says that the future of South Korea is bright, asking if Chobum-kun thinks he will be selected for the national team because if it's Young, he'll break records. Chobum-kun replies that no one knows the future. Do-rim questions if he doesn't have a hunch as he played football well, but his father says not even King Pele could predict the future, and Do-rim agrees. However, Chobum-kun admits that he has a great feeling about Young, because a lazy genius achieves nothing and Young has been consistent. The ball goes into the goal again. Young scores his second goal, and barely 10 minutes have passed since the game started. The boy runs, reflecting that his dribbling has improved and his accuracy with mid-range shots has been enhanced. When it comes to mid-range shots, using them in a real game seems incredibly helpful, and his growth is better than practicing alone. If he continues like this, he believes he can achieve this by the end of the season, gaining solid mid-range shot ranked B. In the second half of the game, the Frankfurt players run with the ball at their feet, making passes and dribbling past those in their way. The commentator notes that Frankfurt is attempting a counterattack as soon as the second half begins and the expedition team prepares to defend. One of the men on the bench comments that the reason for the counterattack is that Young, who chased both offensively and defensively, is now on the attack. So Young is conserving his stamina. Young reflects that he shouldn't expend all his energy in a friendly match, because he needs to save it for the upcoming game. Hyun-jun carries the ball while being marked. One of the players passes the ball to Ho-young. The boy receives it, saying it was a good pass, while other players shout to watch Young. Frankfurt's players try to close in on Young, to mark him and block his pass. But Young uses his impeccable footwork talent and rhythmic flexibility, passing the ball to the side, and dribbling past all 4 players explosively. A Frankfurt player questions if this is even real. As a defender moves in front of Ho-young in the penalty area, he assumes Young will go left, but Young feints to the left, then shifts direction to the right, passing him. The player falls to the ground, thinking it was just a simple dribble. As Yang looks back, seeing the boy sitting on the ground in pain, thinking that it's just like last year, because he felt this way when he faced the German team, feeling the defeat he once witnessed. The team might be different, but he's returning the favor to a German team, and this is his revenge. He felt as if he had grown a lot during the year, and that certainly didn't happen overnight. His body had learned to adapt using balance and adjustments, and he wondered how much he had trained for that simple movement. The kicking practice had been the same, going all the way to the goalpost. The goalkeeper shouted, saying he would block it. Meanwhile, Yang simply ran with the ball, kicking it under the goalkeeper's leg and scoring. Thus, the ball crossed the line, marking a goal. Yang declared that the ball went in. The Frankfurt players noticed it was a hat trick and wondered who on earth Uho-yeong was. Meanwhile, Yang's teammates asked if he had scored again, remarking how different it felt when learning soccer in Brazil. But Hyeon-jun denied this. He explained that Yang wasn't just naturally talented, he had trained very hard. He had also grown taller, and so something was beginning to take shape. A monster, as Yang finished his characteristic celebration. In the end, a Frankfurt player tried to head the ball. Binho Murafa scored Frankfurt's first goal, but at the same time, the Dream Tree team achieved a 4-1 victory. If they had to choose a man of the match, it would undoubtedly be Yang. But it didn't matter to him that he didn't officially receive it, because at that moment, he had gained something far more valuable, realizing he could choose to copy two talents, one from Binho and one from Rim. He chose Binho's decent heading ability at level C, and Rim's strong physique at level B+. He reflected that he was bursting with energy. With those two, he now had a total of 16 talents, but it was still far from enough, as the more talents he gained, the better. He looked ahead with excitement, determined to acquire all the talents of the young Germans, and one day he planned to copy all the talents in the world. In Munich, Bavaria, located in southern Germany, a teammate approached Yang and asked if he liked hot dogs. Yang thanked him as he accepted it. The team had unpacked at the training camp dormitory in Munich and went on a sightseeing tour, as they had some time before the next match. The mothers accompanying their sons offered various things to Yang, treating him warmly. Yang simply thanked them, saying he would accept their kindness with gratitude. He then joined his friends, who offered him juice, while Yang reflected on how clear it was that they were trying to win his favor. He mused that Germany was truly the home of hot dogs, feeling entirely immersed in the country now. They called Munich a toy city, and it really looked like an old European town. It was as if he couldn't stop running around. Yang finished eating and said he was full. His teammates mentioned they were heading to a museum and asked what Yang planned to do. Yang replied that he was tired and would return to the dormitory first, reflecting that it was better to talk with Chobum-kun than go to the museum. During Bayern Munich's training session, someone mentioned they heard he would be watching their next match. That someone was Michael Ballack, who spoke about his striker role model, Chobum-kun. Bastian Schweinsteiger asked if he was really that incredible. Ballack said Chobum-kun was a legendary player. Bastian might not know, but he had grown up watching Chobum-kun's matches. As he walked away, he said he had plans to meet him, leaving Bastian thinking he was a huge fan. Ballack approached the dormitory, trying to find Building D. He noticed someone standing at the door. He wondered who was waiting before him. Calling out to Yang as he got closer, Yang turned to Ballack, looking at the player with wide eyes, surprised by his presence. Recognizing the star player almost instantly, he wondered what was happening because a famous player everyone knew was standing in front of him. Then he activated greed, thinking about Ballack's talents, only seeing talents ranked A and above. Yang wondered why Ballack had so many talents with 5 screens from greed just to display them, and there was even a view more button. Yang reflected that Ballack was incomparable to the rest of the young players and wondered how many talents were in total, because including rank C ones, the number would exceed 30. Unlike others, there were many conditions and restrictions, but Yang thought he couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Of all the players he had ever seen, Ballack was the one he desired the most. Thus, inside the room with Chobum-kun and Ballack said it was a pleasure to meet him, a real honor. And Chobum-kun says it was great meeting him too. He asks how he has been doing these days, and Ballack says he has been very well. Yang reflects that Ballack seemed genuinely excited, and even so, he had become a famous player in his own right. Looking at Chobum-kun, he thinks that, above all, a legend is still a legend. He wonders if meeting Messi and Ronaldo would feel the same way. Then he realizes that someday he might be in their place. A kid might be a fan of his and want to meet him, and Yang imagines how good that would feel. But first, the important things had to come, so he places the glass on the table. He says that first he needs to develop his skills by acquiring more talents. He wonders if the T above the T-level talents stood for title. He speculates whether the T represents Ballack, thinking that waiting until 18 would be a problem because he could acquire Ballack's sense of football. He then says he would experience explosive growth, asking the T level to just wait for him. because if he could even reach the U level, it would be amazing. But the conditions were very difficult. He sees that he would have to score 5 goals against Bayern Munich FC and net 1 in the 4 Continents Youth Tournament. He thinks that even for the same U level, it seemed harder than for Chedu Rim. Yang reflects that it was too early to give up and he would never know unless he tried. Balak asks who the boy was and Chobum-kun laughs. He says his name was Uho-yeong, a promising young player from Korea learning in São Paulo who won the U13 League and the Golden Ball of the Year. Balak says that's incredible. He says it was great to meet Yang. Yang shakes his hand and says he really wanted to meet him. Balak asks if Yang is good at football. Yang simply nods. Balak looks thoughtful and asks how. Yang just feels excited about him, but Balak nods, saying something in German to the boy. Chobum-kun laughs and Yang asks what it means. The coach says it means there's no free lunch, and that if Yang won against Munich, he would tell him. While Balak just looks at the boy. 2 days later, during a match against Bayern Munich, the ball crosses the goal. Fincher scores the first goal of the game against the Dream Expedition team. He netted the goal just 2 minutes after the start, and it was truly incredible. Yang runs, reflecting that he definitely needs to score at least 5 goals. Because Bayern had an average defense, but their attack was no joke, and he couldn't break through with ordinary means. This was because Bayern had Thomas Muller, who was the Golden Boot winner in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, a goal machine who led Germany to victory in the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Looking at all of Muller's talents, the conditions were to win, score more goals than him, and achieve a hat-trick. Muller was short for a player at 1.65 meters with solid fundamentals and technique, always playing with his mind. His off-ball movement and spatial penetration were unmatched. It was like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, as Yang could obtain both Balak's and Muller's talents. So Yang kicks the ball forward, but the goalkeeper managed to save his shot. Yang was being marked by 3 defenders and wonders what was happening. Then he shoots and the ball hits the crossbar as he thinks he needed to score a goal. But Yang wonders why he wasn't focused, and if it was because of Muller's play. Muller steals the ball from Yang. Then he shoots between the goalkeeper and a defender, scoring another goal. The game finally ended with a crushing 5-1 defeat. Yang was panting along with his team. Then he looks ahead hopelessly, seeing that it was the first time he lost a match between forwards, and he didn't know when he faced Munich again, losing the talents of Balak and Muller. He grits his teeth angrily and releases his frustration with a sigh. During mealtime, Yang eats without any energy, eating a little and then saying he was full. The team players ask why he was only eating that when there were so many delicious things. But Yang just ignores them and keeps walking, remembering Chobum-kun consoling him and 2 other players saying it just wasn't his day. Yang gets startled when he bumps his head against the wall and wonders why he was feeling so bad and what his problem was. But his attention is drawn by Hyeon-jun, who calls his name. Yang turns around to address his friend. Hyeon-jun tells him that the coach was looking for him, making Yang curious. Hyeon-jun explains that he overheard the coach giving a briefing about the schedule for the 4 Continents Youth Tournament. Yang gets excited and says he heard it starts next week, adding that he would attend. They head to Chobum-kun's room. The Dream Expedition team steps out. The team talks among themselves, expressing disbelief that their first opponent seemed destined. They say they will have their revenge and appear to have adopted a special training mindset. They declare that Bayern should wait because this time they will win. Yang simply smiles, thinking that this was his last chance, as if he scores 4 goals in the next game, he will copy Balak's talent. The next morning, the expedition team begins their special training, starting with the basics: corner kicks, free kicks, and penalty kicks, practicing set-piece situations. Yang passes to a teammate who takes a forward shot, which Yang reaches with his explosive sprint. An analyst comments that Yang truly stands out. He has solid fundamentals and is more diligent than the others. But Yang seems strange to Chobum-kun. Observing this, the coach stays silent, but then he calls Ho-yeong over. He asks what's wrong, noting that Yang seems off, wondering if playing soccer hasn't been going well for him. Yang simply replies that it hasn't, explaining that his mind feels overloaded and his body doesn't respond as he wants, as if it's broken. Chobum-kun asks if his foot feels tangled and won't move as he wants to. Yang agrees, saying yes. He says he doesn't know why this is happening, but it's frustrating him to the point of madness. Chobum-kun scratches his chin, thinking of a response. He says it's because Yang has too many thoughts. Yang questions his coach's remark. During the Bayern Munich versus Hamburg SV match, Bayern scores 2 goals in the first half. Chobum-kun asks what Yang thinks, and the boy replies that Munich is definitely doing well. But he reflects that there's no doubt about it because they're also overheating. Despite Hamburg's talented players, they practically crumble under Munich's power. And above all, their passionate supporters energize them, Munich fans at home. Chobum-kun asks what he thinks about Hamburg. Yang says it feels like they're being dragged around, unable to execute their planned plays. Chobum-kun agrees, saying that's exactly how it looked. He advises Yang to clear his mind when playing soccer. Overthinking will make the body stiff. Yang shouldn't compete. He should simply play soccer. Yang is surprised by the coach's words, but he realizes they're true. He had been overly conscious and anxious about outscoring Müller. The pressure of scoring 5 goals had suffocated him. Yang asks what he should do, and Chobum-kun asks what else he could do, other than just playing soccer. He explains that soccer fights anxiety, which is why the only thing that can bring back anxiety is soccer itself. He doesn't think Yang is being complacent, but tells him to clear his mind because Yang's heart must be pure, and his head and body must be strong. Yang completes the sentence, saying the heart should be warm, and Chobum-kun bursts into laughter. The boy takes a deep breath, looking hopeful, and thanks Chobum for his advice. A week passes and heavy snow falls on New Year's Day. Another week later, on Tuesday, January 9, 2024, the opening match of the Four Continents Youth Tournament takes place. The Dream Expedition team is ready to take the field. Yang takes a deep breath. Sensing the space around him, he reflects. Thinking he must get rid of obsessive thoughts through the meditation Chobum-kun taught him and controlled his mental state to perform his best. He hasn't mastered it, but he's starting to see some results. Looking ahead with full excitement, he shouts for them to go after Bayern. Muller comments to a teammate that it surprised him. Bayern players gossip about Yang, wondering if he's the player who scored the goal last time. They note that he showed up with strong determination and seemed like a cute kid. Yang steps onto the field with a smile on his face, setting foot on the pitch fully prepared. And so the match between Bayern Munich and the Dream Tree Expedition team begins. The players of the Expedition team pass the ball among themselves. They triangulate in front of Bayern's players. The number 8 of the team crosses a high pass. Yang advances with his explosive run, heading toward the ball while escaping the marking. Muller questions what was happening as he looks back. He orders Daniel to stick to Yang and not lower his guard, and Daniel agrees. Daniel starts chasing after Yang. Yang says that he was a bit shorter but didn't think he would lose in a header, because heading was all about timing and direction, and he was confident he could nail it first. The Bayern player tries to push him aside, but Yang's strong physique talent at B+ level activates. Yang overpowers the player's physical strength, preparing to head the ball. He sends it toward Hyeon-jun while calling out to him. Hyeon-jun runs to meet the ball as it hits his foot. He kicks it forward with force while shouting for Yang to go. Yang overtakes his marker with an explosive sprint. Muller complains about Yang's actions, saying that he was too fast and he couldn't keep up with him. Yang simply kicks the ball forward with force, scoring a goal before Bayern's goalkeeper could react. The Bayern players think it's unbelievable because not even 30 seconds have passed since the game started and Yang had already scored a goal. Chobum-kun just nods in confirmation at the boy. Yang goes to celebrate with his friends. He tells Hyeon-jun that it was an excellent pass, then instructs the team to return to their positions. In the next 30 minutes, they do their best to defend, but the score evens out when Muller scores a goal. And during the second half, Yang battles for ball possession with Muller. Muller wonders what was up with him, because it was like pushing a deeply rooted tree. He couldn't remember Yang being this strong the previous week. Noticing that Yang scores goals and creates plays at the same time, Muller thinks it's unbelievable, because Yang plays like a monster and Muller can't believe it. He always feels like something will happen when Yang gets the ball and runs through the midfield. Muller reflects that he can't let Yang do whatever he wants and needs to pressure him as much as possible. He moves to mark Yang because if Yang doesn't fall, they have no chance of winning. Yang notices the marking in front of him, seeing that 3 defenders are trying to stop his advance, while others yell for their teammates to cover the back, saying they must stop Yang no matter what. But Yang just dribbles past while urging his teammates to hold them off for a bit longer. Then one player stomps hard on the ground, causing Yang to lose his balance. He falls to the ground at the exact moment. Yang injures his knee. Hyeon-jun asks if he's okay as he approaches him. Yang says it hurts a bit but insists he's fine for now. On the other hand, it was a rare opportunity for a free kick, and missing it would be a sin. He says he'll take a shot himself. Hyeon-jun asks if it wouldn't be better to set up a proper play considering Yang's current condition. But Yang doesn't listen, placing the ball on the ground. Facing Bayern Munich's team, he wonders if the distance is too far for a shot. Noticing it's 24 meters to the goal, he thinks it might be better to set up a play. But in congested areas, they press too hard and his teammates wouldn't be able to handle it, so he would have to score on his own. However, the goalkeeper seems strong against mid-range shots, so he needed to be cautious. Because if there's one thing he learned from that unfortunate loss, it's that he should aim for the opponent's strengths. This was Fer Lindemann, born in 1992, Bayern's U13 starting goalkeeper, whose strength in goalkeeping was due to his tall stature and aerial ball handling. But above all, his best skill was saving mid-range shots, while Yang thought about the number 7. Even if his shot was better than others, it wasn't particularly special. The ball's speed would be fast, but the trajectory simple. It was undoubtedly threatening, but it could be easily blocked. Passing to the team would be the safest option for Yang, but if he had to shoot, he aimed for the open space on the left. Yang approaches the ball in 3 steps. The goalkeeper notices that it's just 3 steps and assumes Yang will likely cross it. Then Yang runs toward the ball to take a free kick. Preparing to strike the ball with all of his strength, the goalkeeper moved to the left, thinking that's where it was headed. But the ball went to the right in the opposite direction, scoring a goal. The goalkeeper wondered how it happened as he watched the ball go in, startled. The shot was unexpectedly fast. and it had been a free kick. But that was the laces drive technique, a method for efficiently shooting long-distance balls with minimal steps, striking with the boot laces. There were doubts about its accuracy and the risk of injury, but Uho-yeong's strong body was already prepared for it. With that, Yeong defeated his opponent, winning a mental battle and scoring a goal. He beat his chest, saying it was incredible. The expedition team players celebrated with him, saying they were now 1 goal ahead. The score was now 2-1. Yeong thought he could score a hat-trick since he only needed 1 more goal. Remembering Cho-bum-kun's words that he didn't need to compete, but simply play soccer, he realized it was true. He just needed to play soccer on the field. Afterward, they let their guard down, allowing Munich to score another goal, but another opportunity arose for them. A player from Yeong's team crossed the ball to him. The ball reached the height of his head, and he headed it toward the goal, scoring his 3rd goal and completing his hat-trick. As he reflected that if he maintained this momentum, they could win. The ball moved into Bayern's possession. 2 players advanced, saying they needed to stop Yeong, passing in front of a player from the expedition team. Bayern Munich executed a series of triangular passes among themselves. Muller ran with the ball at his feet, facing Hyeon-jun and shooting beneath his legs, scoring a goal. Hyeon-jun noted that the score was tied, and another player asked if there would be overtime. Meanwhile, Bayern's players were exhausted, saying they couldn't run anymore. Yeong thought he could still run. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, reflecting that he should think positively and just push a little harder than necessary. He prepared himself on the field. The match was given 5 minutes of added time, and Yeong just needed to hold on a bit longer. He instructed all the expedition players to focus entirely on defense. Cho-bum-kun noticed that his team's stamina had reached its limit, and attempting an attack would be insanity. Muller advanced with the ball, thinking this was exactly what they had been waiting for, advancing through midfield. After a long struggle, Bayern Munich's players became exhausted. The expedition team was in the same situation. A substitute on Cho-bum-kun's side remarked that they needed to hold out because if they did, the winner would be decided by a penalty shootout. And so the penalty shootout began. Hyeon-jun stood in front of the goalkeeper, reflecting that Bayern's first player had scored a goal. Seok Hyeon-jun was chosen as the first kicker for the Dream Tree expedition team and reflected that he had to score as well. He ran toward the ball, striking it in a way that the goalkeeper couldn't even react, scoring a goal and tying the penalties at 1-1. Muller scored Bayern's 2nd penalty, making it 2-1, while a player from the expedition team equalized, leveling the score. A Bayern Munich player managed to score their 3rd penalty, and the expedition team tied the score again. Both teams reached 4-4 in the penalty shootout, but Bayern's 5th kicker hit the crossbar, missing completely. The players on the bench exclaimed that this was their chance since the 5th kicker had missed. The last to shoot would be Uho-yeong. Yeong closed his eyes to concentrate, thinking that if he scored, they would win. He ran explosively toward the ball, preparing to strike it with all his strength, sending it toward the goal so quickly the goalkeeper didn't even react. The goalkeeper just watched the ball hit the net, unable to respond, startled by how it happened. The expedition players were astonished as Yeong scored a goal. They ran to him, celebrating that they had finally defeated Bayern. Yeong lay on the ground, thinking he had finally won, but he noticed someone approaching. It was Muller, coming closer. Muller extended his hand to Yeong, who wondered why it had to be him. But Yeong smiled at his rival, thinking that Muller had won the last match, but he had won today, making it a tie. And while they might not play again in the future, he hoped they could meet again someday. Yeong runs, thinking he only scored 4 goals, and if he had scored 1 more, he would have fulfilled the condition, but he had no regrets, because he managed to copy one of Muller's talents. He thinks that solid fundamentals were good, but special penetration could be better since it was his first time seeing an A+ level talent. He was almost certain it meant he had all the essential qualities of a forward, so he would refine his talents further. The greed screen warns him that it would take 40 days to copy, and he wouldn't be able to copy others during this period, but Yeong thinks that's fine. However, he feels sad about missing out on Balak's talent, but he did his best, so it was okay. 2 days after the match against Bayern Munich, they played against C United U13, who made their way into the preliminaries, and the expedition team, exhausted after the Bayern match, lost 2-1. The game was entirely balanced, but accumulated fatigue took its toll. Cho-bum-kun nods in affirmations, saying they worked hard, because defeating Bayern was already a big goal, and they achieved it. With results better than expected, the expedition rested during the remaining 3 days of the tournament, and the day before their return at the hotel, Yeong talks to Cho-bum-kun because he had called for him, and Cho-bum says he wanted to introduce someone to him. He asks the person to enter the room. It was Michael Balak, who greets the boy. Yeong is surprised by Balak's presence. Balak says he came to see Yeong since he would be leaving the next day, and Yeong asks why he came to see him. Cho-bum-kun explains that he came to fulfill his promise, because he had said he would tell Yeong if he won against Bayern's team and hadn't forgotten the promise. Balak says he watched the match with great interest, surprising Yeong, who asks if he really watched it. Balak says he did and asks if Yang could be like him if he worked hard, and Yang thinks that Balak was often a runner-up. But Balak continues addressing Yang's previous question about how to be good at football. Balak explains that he visualized the field in his head while playing, whether controlling it as a midfielder or penetrating the enemy's defense. He says it's crucial to read the movements of every player in the team and, above all, the flow of the game. Yang is amazed by this explanation and thanks Balak, saying he'll do his best. But he's shocked when he looks at Balak again. Seeing the greed screen above him, Yang wonders what it is, feeling both excited and scared. His eyes eagerly lock on as he chooses a talent from Balak. He could select a talent to acquire 33 days in advance. Among Balak's talents were options like the versatility of a U-level midfield commander and the incomparable S-level heading ability, among others. Yang wonders how he qualified for a talent when the condition was to score 5 goals. He recalls scoring the penalty kick and questions if that counted. But he realizes this means he could acquire a U-level talent. Yang chooses the T-level talent of being a midfield commander because, even without being sure of its exact meaning, he wanted to play for the team, not just score goals. He selects the versatility of the midfield commander, saying he'll make good use of it. Yang thanks Balak for his advice, and Balak asks if he was able to help. The boy simply smiles and says Balak definitely did. The player smiles at Yang, saying it's absolutely incredible. After that, Balak promises to help Yang in the process of becoming a professional, since he lives as a player, and also promises to give personal lessons. He shares things Yang could improve on, making it the perfect last night in Germany. On January 26, 2004, Yang returns to Brazil, arriving in São Paulo. He goes to the dorms, reflecting that it had been a while since he had been there. He is greeted by Monica, who welcomes her friend. Monica smiles at Yang as he greets her back. Yang thinks that while he hadn't seen her, Monica had become more mature and her talents had improved. He notices the only condition missing was the second one and reflects that he needs to study more and acquire language and balance skills. But Monica leans closer to Yang's face. She wonders if he got taller and notices he seemed a bit upset about something. Monica said that soon she would be looking down at him and she wouldn't be able to pat his head anymore. Yang asked if he could pat her head, surprising Monica, who became flustered. But she allowed it, blushing at Yang's gesture. A month passed since that moment, and on February 17, he balanced his school lessons with soccer training, and good news came his way. Greed appeared during Yang's training. It announced that the versatility talent of the midfield commander would be acquired, but it would take 60 days to fully obtain, during which he wouldn't be able to copy other talents. Yang was surprised because it was a talent that affected his other talents. He realized Balak never disappointed and thanked him internally, but he kept running with the ball during his training, practicing juggling to improve ball control, and shooting toward the goal. Yang reflected that it had been 3 weeks since he started intensive training to enhance his talents. However, perhaps because he was a soccer prodigy, the growth speed of his talents was much faster, especially the 3 talents: legs as fast as a car, strong physique, and bodybuilder muscles. He noted these were all related to physicality. In other words, as his body grew stronger, his muscles became firmer, allowing his legs to move faster. At that point, he felt ready, reflecting that the under-13 league would be like a piece of cake. Carlos suddenly appeared and called out to Yang, surprising the boy. The coach asked if Yang had time after school the next day. Yang said yes and mentioned he was planning to train there, but Carlos instructed him to go to the physical assessment room at 2:20 p.m. the next day. The next day, the entire under-13 team was in the room. Yang thought it looked like a medical examination. He noticed Douglas sighing nearby. Casemiro was also looking at the same place. Yang wondered why everyone seemed so tense, but he realized they looked older, and if they exceeded the benchmark, they would be promoted to the under-15 team. He understood that today's medical test would determine their futures. Staying was the same for him, because this was his chance to move from the under-13 to the under-15 team at a young age, a perfect opportunity. But he noted it wouldn't be easy. Still, he had to try at least once. The medical examination was far more complex than during the under-13 phase. It included musculoskeletal system tests, cardiovascular evaluations, and blood tests. They also measured isometric strength, heart function, fat analysis, and conducted a 25-meter sprint test. In addition to the basic tests from the under-13 phase, there was this additional evaluation now.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye-bye.